Okay, I'm just gonna look
What?
distracted for a second while I send this out.
No problem. Send it out. What's up, everybody? Steven here, the Horror Freak 85. Just killing a couple of minutes. We're going to be joined by Andre Gower from Monster Squad. So just waiting for him to come in, and then we'll get started with him. So I was rewatching Monster Squad today in the documentary, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I watched Monster Squad the other day, and I watched the documentary last night.
Where did I set my phone down? I'm sorry. Just in case it message back here. All right, that's crazy. I don't know where I set my phone. Let's see. Grab my phone real quick. Drop it. I'm prepared tonight. Oh, here we go. It's beside me there.
Yeah, Andre should be coming on soon.
Yep. So not much else going on this week. Just been working a bit and catching up on these movies and stuff.
Yeah, we've had some crazy storms. We had that big wind and stuff that came through. It tore down my Christmas decorations. I had to put everything away. We had inflatables outside and they all got uprooted. I don't know if you saw the picture. I had a Scooby that's sitting on top of the doghouse and he got lifted up off the ground and he was sitting in front of my front door.
Nah, I don't think I saw that one. Okay.
Yeah, we had some crazy winds.
Going crazy TV coming on here. It's alive. I see we got a couple people in here watching. Andre should be joining us in just a couple of minutes. So I went ahead and sent him the link. Probably just setting up. Oh, speaking of, here we go. Hello, how are you tonight?
Hello.
For you.
Yeah, it's afternoon for me, so that's good.
Yeah. It's like the Truman Show. Good morning. In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
That's right. That's right.
All the different time zones. Welcome. How's your week been?
Pretty good. Not bad. It was down for the count yesterday. Had actually got my booster, and that I have a reaction to the vaccines, so it took me out pretty good. So I'm starting to feel a little back to normal today.
Yeah, I've heard that. I haven't got the booster yet, but I've had the vaccines. The first one really got me, but the second one was like, but it really hurt my arm though.
Yeah, for some reason, it's me too. Yeah, me too. Hey, are you all? You're not ready to? Are you going? You're going live in a minute,
been
right?
on talking, just waiting for you. But if you need to do something, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Let me just give me one because I had a minute. I had a second. I'll be right back in 60 seconds. Be right back.
All right, intermission.
Excuse me. Was that you? I heard something. It might have been my other phone.
Nope.
I heard something vibrate, but it wasn't none of my devices that are next to me. But I have another phone, so it might have been the one that vibrated.
A clone phone?
Well, I have one that actually works, and then I have one that only works on the internet, and I use this one the most. But I can't like make calls or anything on it. It's just basically my handheld computer that I walk around with.
That's basically what they are, little handheld.
Yeah, right. But the other one actually can make outgoing calls. That might have been the one that vibrated. It's somewhere else.
Right. Doomsday Crypt, what's up? Andre will be right back. He just had to take care of something real quick.
All right. Back in action. Back in action.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Doomsday Crypt is in the house here. So any questions anybody has, feel free anytime. So I guess I'll start out. When you were younger, I believe Monster Squad, of course, was your first movie. Did you do anything in school? Were you into acting? How did you come across Monster Squad and getting involved in that?
Well, if we want to go, back to the beginning, I actually started much earlier than the Monster Squad years. I started when I was about 5, in TV and film, and Monster Squads technically was my second feature because I had just done a bunch of television at that time. I did a bunch of print work and commercials and TV, from the age, 5 all the way through, my teenage career until I went to college. But I grew up in LA and I grew up around the industry. My sister is a couple years older than I am, and she was in the business before I was. And so I was just sort of around it and inside of it. And then just, I guess, was the next, the next step was actually being in it and doing it because she was so active and I was around it for so many years. And then I was 5, 6 years old. I just kind of started on a regular basis. And, that led to a lot of commercials, a lot of TV spots, a lot of print work. And, at that time, starting when I was probably about 10, 11, 12, I was working quite a bit and getting to some sort of, status in the industry of a small group of people, which is, the kids in the business, which is, there was dozens and dozens and dozens at the time. But I think, at any given point in time, there's probably about 20% of the kids in the business that do about 80% of the work, if that kind of makes sense. And I think I was fortunate enough to be part of that 20% and got to work a lot more than most, and not as much as others, but I was sort of in that small, fortunate group that did a lot of work. And, leading up to the time that Monster Squad was, getting, cast and auditions were going for, there was just a regular kind of audition process in, the summer of '86. And, it just comes across the, agent's desk and you get, submitted out for certain roles. And it was just sort of kind of that regular kind of audition process, except for at that time, I sort of had, you're in that, second, not basically at the bottom, bottom of the game, but, you had access and, some notoriety. I don't know if notoriety is the right word, but, casting directors and producers and people knew you and you were some sort of, element in that sphere. And you get asked to come in to, read for certain roles. And that's just what it was with Monster Squad, with a twist. A lot of people know, a lot of Monster Squad fans know, but some don't, that I never auditioned for the role of Sean. And I originally auditioned for the role of Rudy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that's, for, my body of work leading up to that time, happened to be, usually, the last, 2 or 3 years, the cool kid with great hair and a lot of hair product and, maybe a leather jacket or two. And, obviously this, movie comes across the desks and everybody says, oh, there's a cool kid with, gelled hair and, James Dean style or, whatever it's supposed to be. And I'm like, oh, well, Andre's played like 3 or 4 of these roles in the last couple of years. Let's submit him for that. And I read, went through the process for, I don't know, a month or so, I guess. And ended up getting cast as Sean and never auditioned as Rudy. But that was one of those fortuitous occurrences.
Yep, meant to be. Did you watch any of the Universal monster movies prior to it? Are you a fan of any of them?
Yeah, growing up, I was, we got to, for a lot of your people, we got to go back in the Wayback Time Machine and realize that you didn't have a lot of access to content unless you were going to some weird matinee or, there was no cable. And good grief, there's definitely no internet, but very little cable, very little premium channels at the time. And so I grew up, watching television. I grew up on television, so I loved, watching the Idiot Box. And I understand why it's called the Idiot Box. I also think it's, one of the best things that we've ever invented to disseminate information and knowledge and entertainment in the form of knowledge. Now it's much more an idiot device, but there's still some really good content down there. And as a kid, I watched a lot of the normal stuff that you watch as a tyke or, as a young adult or a teenager. There just wasn't as much programming. And one of, my regular things was on the weekends, late at night on Thursdays or Fridays, you'd watch reruns of old movies, and you could catch some old horror genre movies like the Universal, classics. And same thing on Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons. You'd have cartoons in the morning, and then you'd have kung fu theater, and then maybe some retro classic movie, whether it's an old war movie or an old horror movie or monster creature feature, something like that, or a sci-fi flick. And I loved watching all that stuff.
Did you have a favorite Universal monster?
Look, Creature from the Black Lagoon's my guy.
Yes.
I mean, from
that's my favorite too.
Yeah, all the classics are great. Dracula's awesome, Wolfman's cool. The Mummy, is what it is. Those all come from sort of like these, mythology and literature lore, and were obvious adaptations, into the moving pictures time of the 20s and 30s, and then television. Creature from Black Lagoon was something that was different, and he was always sort of that kind of underdog of the cool monsters. I think didn't really get the respect that all the classics get, but he's just as much of a classic and is inspired just as much, I think, as any of the others. And we don't really haven't seen him all that much, and Monster Squad comes along, and we actually see our creature character is probably fourth or fifth time we've ever really kind of seen this character on screen. And but look, I love the original. I mean, it's a classic creature tale. He didn't like, he's just doing what Creature from the Black Lagoon does. Like, he's swimming around trying to have lunch, and here come these silly humans and screw up his lagoon. And but then, of course, we got to write in there that he gets infatuated with the good looking gal, and he kidnaps her. But I think that's just a tale of woe for all men of the human persuasion that just got told through the eyes of an amphibian.
Right. And how mermaids came to be.
That's right. And
since the Creature from the Black Lagoon was your favorite, was Gilman your favorite in the Monster Squad monsters, or did you have a different one?
I think standing alone, all of these creatures that happened to get built for Monster Squad were phenomenal.
Yes, I agree.
They really, really were. If you pay attention and understand really what went into them and who made them and how they got made, and we got to see that, sort of the end result onward. I never got to go to the shops and Stan Winston's studio and see these guys, creating this stuff. We sort of saw the end result, but got to live with them for 3.5 months. And to see the inner workings of each one was incredible. And I always try to give credit where credit is due, and every single one has its own masterpiece, element to it. I mean, I think our mummy's a fantastic mummy when you actually look at the costume and the creature effects. And Michael McKay, who's in the suit's fabulous, but Shane Mahan was the guy that had to come up with the design and actually apply building a new style mummy, and it's really great. And the Wolfman outfit, there's it's a helmet with animatronics and wires and all this stuff to move. It's insane. But the Gilman suit was a game changer. It really, really was. It was different than Rico Browning's kind of like zip up, Aquaman, aqua lung type of suit. And to realize that Steve Wang and Matt Rose had to create this one piece foam latex suit that Tom Woodruff Jr., who's also on the effects team, and the first time he's in the actual creature costume, Tom actually made the Frankenstein monster applications, but asked to be in the suit, which launched a career as being a creature performer. But he's in a one-piece rubber foam latex suit, and he literally gets glued in it and can't get out of it until the end of the day. And that was incredible to see that thing, because it looked very real. A lot of stuff looks fake, in real person, and sometimes on camera it looks crappy. But this thing was really, really cool, and it was a game changer in the industry, I think.
Yeah, that was actually part of another question I had. Was like, how cool / scary was these things, like seeing in like real life? Because see on the TV they look so good on the
to understand and know that you're making a movie, and understanding, that they see these guys that are performers and actors inside of costumes. Look, we had the easy job. We had the easy job. We just had to run around and be snarky and cute and foul mouthed when appropriate. And these guys had a lot of work and a lot of long hours, not only in front of the camera but behind the camera. I mean, it took 3 hours to put on, Frankenstein makeups. Tom Noonan has there for 3 hours every day, and then a couple hours to take that off. It's incredible. But to see how it's made and these guys put the work in, it was absolutely incredible. Ryan's a year or so older than I am, and he and I were the oldest ones on set. Robbie and I were the same age. Brent was, I think, 11 or 12 at the time. And, everybody knew that these were actors. I think, even the younger kids like Michael and Ashley, who were 5 and 6, they knew what they were doing. They're professionals, but I think just the environment was probably scary. And, Ashley knew Duncan was a guy in
I
a
saw
costume,
that in the documentary.
yeah, it's but it's got to be. I can't imagine being 5 and having to deal with that.
Right.
But those kids were amazing, and Ashley's still amazing. I don't think she's too scarred from it, but it makes for good stories over a glass of wine. Now that we're much older.
Doomsday had a couple comments. He said, Monster Squad is such a great monster movie. Was on my Halloween watch list, has been for some years. And he also says, Monster Squad has maybe my favorite looking werewolf. That werewolf is pretty badass.
Especially the phone booth scenes, like he's after your son when he's transforming. That was probably one of the best scenes there. Besides
besides Wolf Cop, I know. Look, Wolf Cop's great. I know the Wolf Cop guys. I met the Wolf Cop guys at the premiere of Wolf Cop 2 at Fantastic Fest. I don't even think they did like it wasn't even an unfinished version of Wolf Cop 2 that I got to see and hang out with those guys. They promised me I was going to be in Wolf Cop 3, but I haven't got that phone call yet. Yeah, the Wolfman was probably. I mean, we've had a lot of good, Wolfmans over time. Is it Wolfmeese, like geese, like plural? Like
I don't know. We'd have to maybe put a vote up to that one.
But
I think just need to put a poll on this.
Yeah, to kind of see how
there is.
To kind of see how it was made, and the intricate details, because you are on film and you're doing close-ups and it has to be maneuverable, and the animatronics in it. You got all these guys on the side pulling the levers and stuff, making the eyes and the ears twitch, and that's a lot of skill and a lot of artistry and a lot of engineering and a lot of artistic engineering. And to see the performers, like someone like Carl that was actually in that thing, that's a whole other challenge. And yeah, the transformation scene, maybe one of the better ones out there. I mean, obviously the original one, it's done with time lapse and there's only so much effects you can have, but
right.
A lot of people cite American Werewolf in London and John Grease / Carl Tybalt in the phone booth, and Monster Squad is definitely some of the top Wolfman transformation scenes out there.
Yeah, definitely.
I know from the documentary stuff, and you briefly mentioned how like Ashley didn't know some of the scenes, and it actually terrified her. They were like, "Oh, you'll know." Was there anything? Was there anything you were unaware of, or any of the other cast members, or pretty much you knew on target what you were supposed to do?
Yeah, there wasn't really much that they would kind of hold from us. I don't think, just because we were older and kind of new. It doesn't mean we did everything right. Just you find other ways to get the reactions or the deliveries that that you would need, and that's what comes with directing and writing and producing and trying to get what you need as a result from a bunch of little rascals.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. Little Rascals beats or crosses with the Universal Monsters.
Yeah, which speaking of circling back to some of the stuff you watch on that Saturday morning on your little rabbit ears as a kid in the 70s and 80s is old Our Gang and Little Rascals serials, and I grew up with Alfalfa and Spanky and Buckwheat and Darla and the dog, which we have, we have all of that in Monster Squad, and it's just sort of that gang of misfits that no one else would hang out with, And it's a crazy idea that Fred Decker's sitting around college going, what would this look like? And then he and his buddy put it on paper.
Yeah. I saw also originally it was like 1,000 pages, where I know it's obviously cut down, but did you ever read any of it, of what was cut out? Was that shared with you?
I've read the original shooting drafts. I don't think I ever read or saw an original first draft of Shane, like off of the typewriter or computer from '86 or even before, just because we didn't know each other then. But the original shooting drafts, were longer, had more stuff in it, had a lot more background in the first act with the kids and who they were and what they knew, and the way good writers and good storytellers do their due, and Fred and Shane are definitely icons of this, is a story as a series of setups and payoffs. And whether it's in acts or scenes or the whole shebang, a good story is just a series of setups and payoffs. And that's what we have in the story. But in the final cut of the film, The Monster Squad, we have a lot of payoffs that you don't know are payoffs because we never saw the setups. And there's a lot of setups that we never get the payoffs because we're waiting for them. We never get them. And if you knew if they're missing, then, you kind of see a void there. But most people don't know that. But, we as the cast, got to read, myself personally, there's still some things in there that I wish were in the final version because one, it would make more sense, would be more fun, or, it would make the characters like us, even more likable or enjoyable or cooler. And so every actor reads a script and it never becomes the one you actually shoot on. And
Right.
Things change, and sometimes it's for the good and sometimes for the bad. And there's little things that I missed that I think we missed, but for some reason aren't in there.
Yeah, speaking kind of along the lines of that, one of my questions, when you guys did the Wolfman Have Nards, like in the movie, did you guys feel like that line was going to be so popular and like catch on like later on?
No, I did not.
We have posters of it.
And in fact, it was completely the opposite. One of the things I do remember is, we're about to shoot that scene in the mansion, and that scene was actually changing a lot because that scene was a lot longer, and they were just ripping lines and pages out on the day because of budget and timing. And that's that's a big sequence that I lament is not in the final version, just because it's cooler and deeper. And it starts off as backstory. We go to this mansion because we've tracked the amulet there, and there's a guy in the house, and we're like, well, who's this guy? And he's like, oh, maybe you can help me. And I think in the original story, it was something like he is explaining that he's a descendant of Van Helsing or something, and he's looking for an artifact, and maybe we can help. And this is one of those payoffs that we get the setup for, but we don't get the payoff. And just before the scene where it's Scary German guy's house, and he says, well, if I was a vampire, I would have no reflection. And we're like, wow, you know a lot about monsters, like us dorky kids. And then we get so off track, or hit in the mouth with the Holocaust reference, that we start concentrating on that, and then realize that the next scene, we're in this house with this guy, and he's leading us down into the catacombs of the mansion, and we realize that we're in a bad situation because as we walk as a group down this hallway, is actually my character, I believe, if I recall correctly, looks in this mirror and sees the whole group of us walking down the hallway, and he's not there. And then so we know we're in deep shit. And that's when we scatter and run, and it becomes an episode of Scooby-Doo, and we're chasing all over this, trying to get out of this labyrinth of, the underground.
Yeah.
And on each level, we keep finding we run into different monsters. And in the final version, we're there, and Frankenstein's actually with us, and he gets taken out, but then we encounter everybody on the same floor. And then Wolfman jumps out, and we do the kind of, the titular line now, which becomes the most iconic line in the entire movie. And we're reading, I'm reading this page, and we're rehearsing it. And, I've never, ever seen this word before in my life, ever. And look, I'm a red-blooded, kid of my age, that's from California. I think I'm pretty worldly at this time and, pretty cool, I'm pretty cool. And I've never, ever seen this word and I've never used it. And I certainly wouldn't use it in this context. And I asked Fred, I was like, hey man, can we change this? Like, I don't know what this word is. Like, I would never, like, I don't say this word. Like, this isn't a cool word. Like, no one says this. And Fred, I now know, it took 20 something years to realize this, but it's sort of a parallel story to a learning situation that Ryan Lambert had with the costumer and realized what it is about storytelling and movie making. And Ryan was doing his costume fitting for Rudy. And of course we talked about the leather jacket, and the costumer had Ryan in the trailer, and she had like 7 or 8 different leather jackets on, and Ryan put 2 or 3 on and put one more on, and she goes, that's it. That one looks good. That's it, I think. And Ryan tells a story. This is Ryan's story, but it parallels mine later that I finally understood. And Ryan said, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable in this jacket. Like, I would never wear this jacket. Like, I would never choose this jacket. And she looked at Ryan, the costumer, and said, that's okay, dear, because you're not playing you. And Ryan, in his revelation, said, I understand what's happening now. And it took me a lot longer to understand that, because fast forward, I'm asking the director and co-writer if I can change this word. Like, I've never heard this word. It's uncool. I feel dorky saying this word. Like, I'm much cooler than this word. And Fred answered the question the very same way the costumer did, in a different way. He said, I'll tell you what, let's try it like it is on the page, and then, we'll try some different later. And what Fred was saying is, that's okay if you're uncomfortable saying this word, because you're not playing you. Sean Crenshaw would say this word. And that was a very cool learning experience that I didn't learn for 20 years. But I realized that, it worked out, and I'm super, thankful that it did, because we have something so iconic as, Wolfman's got nards as the line, and it's not even my line. I say kick him in the nards.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, Horace has the line that becomes the iconic outburst and has been replicated all over the place. And who knew that something like that would end? Look, if my dumbass, dorky 13-year-old self that thought he was cool had changed it, we never would have had this. And so Fred was absolutely right. And I don't want to say I was wrong for asking, but I'm glad we didn't change it.
Yeah.
Yes, we would have never had Wolfman had nards.
That's
Or
right.
has nards.
And and to see that the impact of the line of either kick him in the nards or Wolfman's got nards, and the word nards itself, that just became its own part of people's lexicon over the years, and it's everybody's line that they go to. And you guys have mentioned, the documentary a little bit, and that's Adam F.
Which
Goldberg's
also named Wolfman's got nards.
That's right. We wouldn't have the only title for a documentary about monster squad. It's the only one that works. And Adam F. Goldberg, sat down the first time I ever talked to him in person and said, "You don't understand what that line did to me in my career. Like, I have written that word in every single thing I've ever written because it changed me as a kid." And I was like, that's not true. And then he had, that's nards. And then he had his editor for the Goldbergs send a supercut of the last couple seasons of every time someone on his hit network TV show said nards. And I realized that he wasn't lying. And it's pretty insane. And it's things like that you just don't count on. I think people try to write movies or make franchise or, create franchises or iconographic things on the page. And the things that become iconographic are unplanned. And I think Wolfman's got nards is one of them, and you're wearing the other one. Yeah, that was not a no one ever would have thought there would ever be more than one shirt ever that said.
Yeah. I found this at a con one year, and they asked me if I wanted to change the colors. I'm like, no, that's the way it is.
Why would you change it?
Well, I used to react that way, the same way when I started seeing the Stephen King rule shirts, starting to proliferate a little bit and become a thing. And I realized I was signing a lot of these things and taking pictures with a lot of people. I was also running into people at the grocery store wearing a Stephen King rule shirt. That's always fun. You hit them up by the produce and go, "Hey, good shirt," and then they realize, and then they lose their mind. That's always a fun,
Oh,
story next to the broccoli. And but I saw the very first time I ever saw one that was in different colors. I was like, that's incorrect. That's wrong. Like, they don't know. They must just be the author's fans. They just must be actual Stephen King. Because we run into a lot of that too over the time. Like, see the shirt and like, oh my God, I do love Stephen King. It's like, and people are like, you don't get where this. You're not a Monsters Club fan.
and you are.
Yeah. And but then the kind of that waned over time. But then I started seeing more examples of the shirt, and then I saw, I think, someone with like a purple shirt with white lettering or something, and I was like, that's not it. Like, why would they do that? They changed it. It's totally wrong. But then I realized it's so perfect, because now the Stephen King rule shirt is transcending itself and becoming its own thing. And my favorite thing is when people either make their own, or it's great because vendors buy it. Like you said, you found one at a con, and back in those, it was amazing that this would even exist. But what these people were doing is they were almost even more true to like they would go home and do a crappy iron-on job, with like, heated, vinyl letters, and the kerning would be all bad, and it, wouldn't look as good. And like, well, I didn't have a red t-shirt or red letters. The only I could find was the white one. So I chose purple because that's my favorite color or something. And I realized the shirt was becoming something on its own. And they were making it their own, and they were making their own, and they were making their own style. And then so the different colors and different iterations and different font, were coming out, and I loved it. And then it even took another step, and they started saying other people rule. So now it just took a whole other leap into a whole other dimension of what that shirt was, and has started to become something completely different. And the first one I saw that had any different, I saw a guy wearing a Fred Decker rules shirt, which I was like, absolutely, it's amazing. And so we took a photo with him, and then it's everybody's added on whatever they wanted to. And it's a little ridiculous to see Andre Gower rules shirts with people on it, but I there's some people that I love dearly that have those. And it's neat, but
you should wear one.
Or should just say I rule.
They're like,
let's just say,
they don't know who you were. They just like, who's that? That's me.
Just like an upward arrow, just enters rules. That would be very deep cut. Yeah. And I think one of my favorite ones where it started to transcend that was my buddy Jonah Ray, the comic and actor, who's super funny, was wearing a shirt that said Dean Koontz is okay, I guess. And I was like, that's hilarious. That's so funny, but it's only based off a deep cut of something obscure that is now not as obscure as it used to be. And then I think last year or the year before, I saw Prince Jackson, who runs a podcast called the Nightlight. He posted a shirt that said Regina King rules. And I was like, Regina King does rule. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, that's so spot. I was like, this is just becoming a thing. And, to be, I'll never not, whatever that becomes, I'll never not be, a part of that as kind of the first circle of, or, that inner circle of connection to it. And that's going to end up being this crazy thing someday.
We need to see a spider with a human head shirt. The drawing.
That's a good deep cut thing too. One of my favorite deep cuts thing I ran into, I can't remember his name. I was at Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas years ago. It was like 2016. And this big, he's a tall guy, big beard, and he had his big kind of like black, movie poster shirt, like everybody else is wearing at this film festival. And I kind of I had to take a kind of like a second glance. And if I was drinking something, it would have been a very Rudy-esque spit take. And I noticed that he was wearing a Groundhog Day Part 12 movie shirt. And that movie doesn't exist. So it's such a deep cut of a Monster Squad reference. And it's even deeper than Spider with Human Head. And I was like, there's a Groundhog Day Part 12 movie poster vintage style t-shirt. I was like, that's amazing. I was like, this is absurd, but very cool. And I think there's a lot of stuff that could be out there, and who knows, there may be things that are working on that as we speak.
So what was
you ever see like the Monster Squad rules t-shirt? I haven't. I'm just curious.
Yeah, but I've seen just about every iteration of that. Whether it's your favorite author or favorite actor, or even something like, I think a guy walked around and said, other movies rule. I'm like, I don't know if you want to go that. It's like, you want to keep it in the house, but there's so much you can do with it. I mean, you can take an author, you take other actors, you can take people. You could do a shirt and say like movie puns rule. It's like you could get as deep or snarky as you want to. But the minute they start like endorsing candidates for political office, then I'm gonna voice my opposition to that. It's like, no.
Speaking of puns, though, I just got done watching Caesar and Otto's Paranormal Halloween. I just finished it right before we got. Oh my god, that movie is hilarious.
It is. It is. And I had met my buddy who makes that movie, who plays Caesar, and he had asked me years ago. He's like, "Hey, if we make the next one, would you be in it?" And usually it's a thing where like they're not making him anywhere you are, and it worked out to where I was like, "I'll come." Like, what do you need? I love being a part of something that's fun, and there's some some innovation and some intellect to it. And if you actually watch the Caesar and Otto movies, they are not the biggest budget. They don't have a lot of time. They don't have a lot of resources to put into it. And boy, if they did, they'd be bangers. I mean, absolute bangers. Mm-hmm. But part of the enjoyment is that they're not. And then if you can pull out these, but those things they're such quick hitters. There's so much going on in each scene with these guys. And it's just bang, 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 maybe Dave back and forth. And then you're inside of something else. And there's so many things being thrown at you that it's absolutely, borderline genius comedy. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get the deep references, then you're not going to get it and you're not going to like it. But if you're inside of sort of that deep kind of genre, know these ins and outs of things, then they really are smartly done. And the only thing you lament when it's over is that, boy, I wish I could have, all that went by so quick. I have to watch it again, or boy, I wish, this would get a wider release and a bigger audience, but they have their own little niche thing. And, they were coming to town. He's like, "Hey, I've got, we're here, we're doing it. We've got XYZ. I was like, "What do you need me to do?" He's like, "I've got this great role at the end of the movie. You're playing you're playing the governor or the politician." I was like, "Perfect." And he's like, "I just need you to show up here, sit at a desk and read a speech. It's really kind of quick and easy." And I think there was another scene in the boardroom or something, right? And I was like, okay. And this was right at the time. I can't remember what year this was, 15, 16. And I was sitting there, and he's like, "And what's with the?" I was like, "Oh, the mustache stays." I was like, the mustache. I had this giant mustache at the time, and he was like, "What's he gonna?" He's like, "I can't really tell you to shave it off. I'm asking you to be in my." In my low budge kind of genre comedy movie. I was like, "Yeah, but I think it works, especially if I'm playing this kind of, just let it work. I'll comb my hair poorly and have the mustache, and I'll just, I'll be a politician." And I think it worked out great. I think it worked out great.
You got that cop in there with the fake mustache.
That's right. And
I was watching this, I was cracking up through most of that movie. It was just I didn't know there was other Otto and or Caesar and Otto movies. I'll have to look for them now.
There's four of them. There's like the original one. There's a Christmas one. The summer camp one is funny. Felissa Rose is in it, and they like make a reference to Sleepaway Camp. Dave is like, "I heard she's got a penis." I don't know. That's just what I heard. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot. That's what I said. You have to have those deep cuts. Like you're not going to get
I'll
the
have to
inside.
definitely look for that now. I didn't know, but yeah, I watched the one he was in, and I was gagging. That movie's hilarious.
It's definitely a departure that you can't take, because if you're going and watching that with too much of a critical eye or too serious, then you're not going to enjoy it. So if you just let it wash over you, and if you can catch half of the shit that's going on in there, you'll come out with a good time. And then I realized that these guys just riff a lot of what they're doing, and I don't know if it was a little payback for making them accept my big mustache on the day, but I think they left it in at the end. The very last scene is, and he walks off camera and goes, "Nice mustache." And I thought he was just giving me shit as we were rolling cameras. But for some reason, I stayed. I didn't want to let him. I think he was trying to break me. Like, I think he was trying to get me to, to kind of crack a little bit on camera. And I just stayed with it and kind of watched him go away, because he didn't do it on his coverage. He did it on mine. And so he goes, "Yeah, by the way, nice mustache." And so I just kind of like turn and look in the frame and I was like, "Yeah, it is a nice mustache." And I think he was fucking with me. So I tried to fuck with him back, and he ended up keeping it. So I think that's the ultimate. He got me. But I think it was great. It works.
I seen he was also listed as a co-producer in the credits.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the kind of workaround of how they get a lot of us able to actually show up on the day and do it.
Gotcha.
Depending on where we shoot it and how we shoot it and things like that, there's a lot of obstacles in the way, and there's some other workarounds that you can do. But I think that was one of them.
It's like going across the monster movies. Also, you were in Baby Frankenstein as well as corporate hunter there.
Yeah, which is funny is another. And that's not even a monster movie. I don't even know why this original script is called Baby Frankenstein, because this is a sci-fi movie. It's a sci-fi movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's more along the lines of E.T. It's not even along the lines of E.T. It's more the lines of like AI or Boy Finds Robot. And that was a situation where I had two friends of mine that had run into the filmmaker in a small town in Pennsylvania, and he was like, "Oh, I have the script. I've got these people interested in making it." And they're like, "Well, we're production people. Why don't we make this movie?" And somehow in their conversations, my name came up, and the writer director apparently had known or heard of me or something, and they asked if I would want to be in this movie. And I was like, "What movie is this?" And I was like, "I don't think so. Not quite sure." But then I realized what was happening, and it was this something that I was starting to become a little bit more, trying to be supportive of and open to, which is local or regional and lower budget kind of filmmaking. And my friend, they called me and said, would there be any way I'd want to come and do this? And I was like, well, send me the script. And I actually kind of liked the script, the original, things get rewritten. Yeah. And it was supposed to be like, they set it up and they were working out the deal and, making it available and able for me to be in this movie. And I think it was supposed to be a 15-day shoot, which is not that long for a feature film, and very, very low budget, which is fine. There's ways to do that. And I celebrate when people get to do that, because it's certainly an accomplishment. And as I was flying to Pennsylvania to do this movie, they had to rewrite the entire script based on the new shooting schedule. And it went from 15 to 7 days total, which means my 7 or 8 days in the movie turned out to be 2.5 or something. And so the whole character and the whole storyline kind of got put in the Cuisinart a little bit and, chopped up. And but I was there, and we worked it and tried to do as much as we can. It was a tough shoot for the production folks. There was so much to do, and with not a lot of back support and resources, and I never thought this movie honestly would see the light of day. I don't know if a lot of people were hoping this movie would never see the light of day, but I was like, I don't know. And the writer were kind of pushing it and putting it in a lot of smaller tier film festivals and just pushing it. And I think the best thing that happened to this little story was COVID came out and shut everything down. And that's a perfect example of where people still want to see movies. And, we went through this like content crisis, in the first 6 months of COVID, where, our supply, like our pipeline of new stuff got choked off. And, that's going to have residual effect, a ripple effect down the line. So everybody was just needing content, and this had a chance to get a release, which was insane, because I don't think it ever would have had that opportunity. And I celebrate the fact that, it was a tough production. My friends worked their, fingers to the bone. I mean, it was a tough shoot, and, it was, sometimes a good situation, sometimes a bad situation, and, how it turns out, but you got to celebrate filmmaking and keeping your nose to the grindstone, so to speak, on something like this. And hell, your movie gets a release, 3 years later. And sometimes that's how it works. I think there's some gems in that movie. There really is. I thought this movie, there was no way that you could save, what they actually, put down on camera, and worked it. And there's some things that are, problematic, not in the social commentary sense, but in, in a cinematic sense. But, you can nitpick almost every movie that comes out if you want to that way.
Sure.
But, it made this little kind of endearing, like I said, ET-like story about, this interesting situation that we, as kids, we all dream of being a part of an adventure like that. And then you couple it with the absurdity of this kind of hijinks with, these, crazy, kind of guys that are supposed to be the bad guys, but they're just bumbling idiots, and they are just absolutely hilarious, and way over the top. And one of them has no line, and one of them has no lines, and he's the best thing in this entire movie. I love it. It's, that was a local guy from the area, and I love him. He's just got the best. He's not an actor. He's just this guy. And I think the hardest thing to do is perform with no dialogue. You can hide behind words a lot, and he just has these reactions and these facial expressions, and a great mustache. And
Yes, definitely.
And then a million ways to die in the West. Mustache. We're all singing about their mustache.
And to have, he's playing off this, and I want to see those. I said it for a while after the movie came, because I actually ended up doing a lot of media for this movie, which was insane. I got called by the PR firm that was repping it and I was like, what do you mean you're the publicist for this movie? This movie's not happening. No one's ever seeing this movie. And I did like 2 dozen interviews for this feature, and it was great. And I just realized that I hadn't seen the movie. I had never seen it. I was like, hey, can you call the producers and see if they'll send me a link of this movie? And then I'll decide if I want to do interviews about it, because I can't talk about something I don't know anything about. I've never seen this movie. And I watched it, and I like I said, it ended up being something completely different than I thought it was going to be. People started talking about it. They enjoyed what it was. And I thought those two guys, those two hijinks as little kind of, they were almost the Keystone criminals, instead of the Keystone cops. And I want to see more adventures with those two guys. That'd be fascinating.
Yeah, Wild Eye picked it up as a distributor, and a lot of us Wild Eye fans, we do reviews, and a bunch of us have done reviews on that on YouTube. We do what we call Wild Eye Wednesdays, and that was a popular one during Wild Eye Week and Wild Eye Wednesdays. So
yeah. And like I said, from all the aspects of that getting together, you couldn't get more of a definition of a low budget, not just the money, but and then how much hard work has to go into that, what you have to put together, all the way from the writer director to the guys that were funding it. And then really you got a hats off to my two friends, TJ and Denise, who actually produced that movie and made everything happen on the day, and then had to deal with all the fires and the pitfalls and the jungle cats jumping out from everywhere and poking their heads up and just ruining a day for you. And those guys put a lot of work into something for quite a long time, and they end up with a finished product, which you got to celebrate the work that everybody put into that.
I watched it for a first time this week, and I just thought I was a lot more adorable than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, it's just a fun family film. No, not really any horror.
Pretty much.
That's right. Like I said, it's not even a
movie. Yeah,
it's not even a genre movie. And I was wondering what they were going to do with it because I saw the release poster for it. I was just creepy and it's almost like
he's coming at him like he's gonna grab him or scare him or something.
Yeah, it's like an Italian version poster. It's almost like the Italian version poster of a Chucky movie, with the creature on there. I was like, what did they do? This is not what this character looks like. What is happening? Did they change it? And then I thought for a minute that they were going to just digitally completely erase the character we had on camera and like put him with this. I was like, what's happening here? But it did. It turned out to be more of a kid's adventure. It ended up being a Halloween night kid's adventure film, a la a bunch of other movies that we grew up with that we liked and have become part of, our history. And, it just kind of touched on a lot of those things. And I thought it was cute. And I thought there were some more moments. There's some funny moments in there. But there's some things that are missing too, if the original or even the second draft. But it was almost another like Dave's movie, like Caesar and Otto's. You wish things like this that people really care about trying to get made. If someone would give them the backing or the resources or the help to get them made, what they could actually put together. Like Dave with Caesar and Otto, like just give them a couple more days and a little more access to resources, how great these would be.
Oh, yeah.
But also the bare bones of it is also what makes it too. So you got to understand that. But, there's a lot of things in something like Baby Frankenstein that like the original draft. I mean, it was a lot deeper and backstory. And that's what I resonated with the story was, this was a sci-fi. This is a sci-fi movie. And it starts in the 50s where, this like crazy inventor, started making automatons in the 50s, and then the company closed down, but like one was missing for 50 years, and this this automaton gets found in an attic, and it gets activated. I was like, this is a fantastic idea. How are they going to do that? And I kind of like the character of kind of like the the heir apparent of this old defunct defense contractor type 50s Cold War company. That had to chase down this thing that could literally change the world or destroy it.
But yeah, speaking of like ET references, there's a big one in that one, because they put the sheet on him with the eyes cut out to go trick or treating.
Oh yeah. There's no high like they weren't. I had never seen ET. I didn't know that happened. Like no, that's right on the nose. Everybody knows that one. It's great.
Mr. Bones is here. He said, "What's up? I love the Monster Squad."
Well, good. Then you're in the right place because you'd be listening to the really wrong podcast if you were.
Spoiler alert! Now, if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Wait, I tuned in. I thought this was the $6 Million Man. What is happening here?
Yeah, if you guys are all watching, you're fans of Monster Squad, definitely go check out Wolfman has Nards, right? Or got Nards. I always get it messed up.
It's Wolfman's got Nards.
Wolfman's got Nards. It's a really good documentary that you made yourself, didn't it?
Well, thank you for the mention and the plug and the good review. There's only been like one or two half bad reviews, so I appreciate it. I think we did something right here. Yeah, I mean, Wolfman's got Nards. I did not make this on my own. There was no way I could have done that by any stretch of the imagination. I did conceptualize a documentary. I took it. To a couple places, as original idea. I got very lucky one day. Wasn't the intended outcome of this Tuesday afternoon, whatever it was, but I ended up running into three guys on a sidewalk. Many famous stories have started that way. But that ended up being Henry McComas, Wes Caldwell, and Aaron Kunkel, and they worked at Pilgrim Media Group. And I was there to go to lunch with a friend of mine that they worked in the same building. And just because of happenstance, we met on the sidewalk in a very, 10-second window. And then we met later and we're talking about projects. And all three of these guys happen to be, knowledgeable and fans of the Monster Squad. And I talked that I had this idea that I thought was a really interesting story. It's not a making of documentary. It's not a behind the scenes documentary. I think it's very interesting that the stories that I had been hearing over the last, 10 years at that time, why this movie that did not win at the box office, an absolute box office failure in 1987.
Damn Lost Boys.
Yeah, and
Wasn't that
how and why this movie connected with the fans the way it did, and why that tether never got cut. And that's where it kind of started from. And I had a different idea of what maybe the documentary would be. And thankfully working with, the Pilgrim team, and definitely, most importantly, Henry, realizing that what was there that I was saying was out there, and we worked together, and Henry led the charge on the production side of it to, capture and pull out what those stories were, and where we were, and it became much bigger, much broader, deeper than my first impressions of what I thought we had with a story here. And I'm super thankful and appreciative that sidewalk encounter turned into what it did, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking about Wolfman's Got Nards in the same context. And the festival run that we had, the rewards that we won, the attention that it's gotten, and now we have something other in addition to Monster Squad to talk about, and how something like a film like the Monster Squad can impact people and change their lives. And I thought it was interesting to hear those stories and tell the stories of the stories from the fans and the people that were involved with Monster Squad, and how this movie kept living for 30 something years.
Yeah, there's very touching tribute to Horace. Was Brent? I'm sorry, I didn't write his name down. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, it's Brent Shalem. Brent Shalem. Yeah.
And there's with the fans too, but yeah, the Brent one, that was very touching. I actually cried a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. That's probably the one. That's probably the one spot that everybody does, and it almost feels like a cheap shot, as the filmmaker, when people say that. But it was something that was part of our reality. It's part of the fabric of the story. And Brent, I thought, is probably everybody's favorite character. He has Ashley says it the best. The character of Horace probably has the best arc in the movie. Everybody else kind of stays who they are. Brent is the one that levels up, and his life changes, over that weekend, and he becomes a hero instead of the victim. And everybody wishes that they have that moment in their life, whether they're 12 or 42. Like we all wait for that moment in our life. And unfortunately, Brent passed away in I think 97 or 96. That ended up being not only a tragedy, but something that probably didn't need to happen. And it was and no one knew the story. Nobody knew what actually happened until we were rolling cameras for the documentary. Because Brent's whole family has passed away. Also, he doesn't have any siblings. His parents have both passed away, and so we had to track down one of his childhood friends and her mother, who Brent spent a lot of time at their house, and then another family friend. And this is basically what's left of his family, and they're not even relatives. And we sat there mouth agape, hearing the history and the stories that we had never heard. And actually the day of his death, what happened. And and knowing that the fans all relate to Horace in some way, he's everybody's favorite character, then to realize the deep loss, not just losing the life of someone that but the deep loss in the fabric of the story is that everybody's favorite character, one, passed away, but also passed away before he knew how many people around the world loved his character and him. And then so he didn't get to see that. And then the fans didn't get to meet their hero. And even though actors aren't heroes, and we never should
Right.
be,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't, characters can't be. That's fine, and we're just the vessel that kind of delivers the character. I think that's the big loss. Losing Brad. I mean, there'd be a lot of stuff that I would trade if Brent Chalem was around to see this resurgence and to bathe
Mhm.
in the kind of warmth of the fandom that Monster Squad had got to see after 2006 2007, because I think he would have enjoyed that.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, that's what's great about in the documentary, the fans and how everybody has their own story and how they can relate to it. And it's just great. Even their children are watching the show or movie, I'm sorry, and getting into it. And how, I mean, a movie, some people might think Monster Squad, how can that inspire people? But it does that. So.
It really has. And that's sort of what I was talking about. These stories that wasn't just, oh my God, I love your movie, and I'm the only one that knows it because it's obscure. Which we hear a lot. But then I started hearing about these stories of what this movie meant to people and how it affected them and changed them, whenever they saw it, and how it stuck with them, and how it, motivated them to be who they are, or was the catalyst to be interested in something. And whether that's a writer or a director or a creature effects artist, or, that's kind of interesting. And that's what I wanted to bring across. And it was all these individual stories that were very similar, but very unique to these individuals, but also they all kind of fit into sort of this bubble of how something like a movie, in this case, Monster Squad, can impact someone and stay with them for most of their lives. And then, like you mentioned, Steve, it's, now there's just, they show it to their kids and they become fans because there's something about it that connects. And, even kids in the 90s that were teenagers or college kids saw this old obscure movie and then they ended up liking it. So that's a whole other, vertical of a fan base that starts on its own. And then when you learn the history of the Monster Squad and who made it and who was involved with it, and how these are the icons of the industry, and especially in the creature event world, and how it kind of changed the game, and it inspired a lot of stuff. There's a lot of Monster Squad fingerprints on a lot of things after the Monster Squad.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw it. I was 2 when the movie came out, but I saw it when I was 10. I used to go to the video rental store back in the day with VHS, and I remember seeing the cover. I was like, I always kind of liked creepy stuff. Like when I was younger, I wasn't really allowed to watch too many horror movies, but obviously my mom knew I liked it, and I saw the cover and everything. I'm like, Monster Squad, I got to see this. And I would rent it like so many times. I remember we'd go back like again. I'm like, it's great. I got to have this.
And for some reason, that's what connected. I mean, whether it was the cover art that caught your eye, or one of the employees at the video store was like, "Oh, you haven't seen this? You've got to see this." And then you go back every weekend and rent that damn
I actually
tape.
told the people who work there, I'm like, you got to see this.
Right. And so that's, you're just adding your own little kind of, connective fiber into the fabric of that story that makes the whole kind of, blanket that is the Monster Squad, and its connection to the fans and their story with it. Everybody remembers where and how they saw it for the first time. And, some are very, very specific of, exactly where and when and that they'll never forget. And,
Video Plus.
See, that's it's very cool to be a part of something like that is an indelible mark on someone's brain.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't remember my exact time, but I've had a lot of stuff that's like fogged up a lot of my old memories. But yeah, unfortunately, but it still has stuck with me. It's like, I remember when I picked up this shirt, I didn't even remember the connection to the movie. I just knew that these colors were right. It was like in my mind, but I just didn't connect until like later on. I'd watched the movie at some point. I was like, that's why I wanted the shirt like that.
Interesting. That's a great, another kind of, version of an origin story of what it meant. And, something, an image burned in your mind, you knew the colors were right. And then the connection clicked later and you're like, oh yeah, that's a great story. That's a great story.
So, in the documentary, I can't remember if you answered or not, but they were saying, they were asking the question, do you consider this a cult movie? And of course, you asked 5 different people, they'll all have answers. What is your opinion on this being a cult movie?
I don't. That is probably definitely a field that I am not, statused enough to make a definitive answer. I think really what it is, it's just like any other piece of, art or media, whether it's a book or a painting or a movie. How it affects the individual. It's about the experience. And if it's a cult classic, in this broad, industry type of term, I don't think it was a cult movie. I think it was fairly mainstream on its concept. It wasn't this weird weird thing. Even though it was a weird concept of what would happen if the Little Rascals fought the classic Universal monsters. But look at that sentence in itself. It's the Little Rascals, which were these giant icon, stars and characters, up with the most famous monsters in the history of cinema. And then all you're doing is kind of like an original mashup, like the first mashup of sorts. So in that sense, maybe it is a cult movie because the idea is camp. Or maybe camp-y, but I think some cult is just automatically synonymous with camp, and I don't think that's accurate. There's not a lot of camp in Monster Squad. There's comedy and there's humor, but there's no camp. It's all done very straightforward and serious and dark and scary, which I think is what resonated with a lot of the kids. They're like, this is a crazy monster kids adventure film, but there's some real shit going on here. Like, this is dark. Right. Like, there's a body count in this movie. This is how many people die in the Monster Squad compared to how many people die in the Goonies?
Right.
And they're both great kids adventure movies, but one's a little darker than the other.
Just a little bit.
At it from that context, which again is one of the reasons it failed in the box office, because parents were like, "You are not going to see that." But I think, I don't think it was made intentionally as a cult movie. But I think it's definitely become a cult classic because it was something by definition was obscure and unknown and then found its footing and has a giant fan base. But I don't necessarily agree with that because the fan base isn't new after the fan base had always been there and they just got together later. When we're able to party, it was always there. And I love when, our fans and even filmmakers and academics say, I don't know what it is because this movie means so much to me that it's just always been a favorite that turned into a classic and it's never leaving me. And that means, when they first saw it, it was something special. And then as they got older and the time goes on, you understand that, the history of it and maybe the relative environment around it that's changed it or you, but nothing's changed. And when someone can say that, then you've got something unique, I think.
And yeah, sorry, were you about to say something? Yeah.
No, I was just saying.
Yeah, appreciate your answer. Definitely, I agree with that. There was also asked like a lot of remakes being done, and you did tell your twist on it or whatever. Would you like to see a remake? I know some remakes are good. Some, if they're done right, are enjoyable. What do you think a remake would turn out as?
Just for the sake of being that, misfit of a movie, if you never remade Monster Squad, that could be cool.
Yeah.
I don't think a remake is the answer.
No.
Because I'm stealing a response from Fred Decker and from Shane. They've remade it a bunch of times. We've remade the Monster Squad a lot. We've seen it.
Yeah.
Sometimes right on the nose and sometimes just, kind of like sliding by and touching it a little bit. I don't think a remake is the answer. If you want to make a movie about a bunch of kids that fight monsters, then go out and make another, I don't know, Stranger Things.
Right.
Yeah.
So remakes, reboots aren't I mean, they're super trendy right now. They
Yeah,
are.
unfortunately.
I
Mr.
think a lot
Bone
of
said I would hate a Monster Squad to be remade, but nothing.
yeah, I don't think a remake and a reboot are the answer. I think it's low hanging fruit, and they usually are kind of soft or rotten, or they don't have the same tang.
Definitely wouldn't have the same feel either that we grew up
No.
with at
No,
all.
That's the
because
only thing I think that would work possibly is if it was like your guys' kids.
That would be it.
well, then
But
that's
that would the only be thing I wouldn't even think that would somewhat work. But other than that, you don't really like a movie like that. You don't want to remake.
Right.
But yeah, you never know.
You're not, yeah. See,
They
what you
don't have
just
new
said is
ideas anymore.
what you said is not a remake or a reboot. That's a sequel or a
True.
continuation of the story.
That is
So,
true.
and they were remaking this movie for quite a long period of time. Starting in like 2009 all the way through 2014 or something. They were working on it and doing a remake, and it didn't happen. And a lot of people say that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of places that it could go. I think there's a lot of interesting stories that could be told. I think if it was current and updated a la sequel, I think there's some really cool stuff that you could do that connect to the original story and then carry it forward. And I definitely think it still has to be a kids-oriented movie where the kids are either the heroes or kind of the focal of it, or end up being the focal and the heroes of it. Because I think that's what's important. If we're not staying true to the original kind of championing of what connected with the kids that saw it in the 80s and 90s. If you went away from that when you were remaking it or doing a sequel, I think you got to stay with that same type of feel that the kids are the important part of it, and it's an inspiration and a motivation for them.
Jerry Garcia in the comments has a great thing. Says I was 7 in '87 and was about at the right age for Monster Squad, but I didn't see it until I was an adult. Can I ask what age you would think was appropriate for the film?
Back then or back now? I say that because apparently 7 is the new 10.
True.
And I think Jerry Garcia, you're looking great for being dead for 40 years.
Looks like a kitty. If you could see
it's great.
They're a little kitty in their picture,
and probably still touring. It's amazing. I think back then, I think 7 was probably a little early. But the problem is, like, a little older than that, 12, 13, 14 was probably a little old. And that's what killed the movie in the box office, I think, in 1987 was the content, the movie itself, the rating, and the accessibility that certain kids had. I think probably I don't have a number for that answer, Jerry. Sorry. I think it's all relative to the individual kid. I know 5 and 6-year-olds that love this movie current day. Or 10 years ago, they were 5 when they first saw it, and they're still okay kids. They're not, raving lunatics and, knocking off bodegas and stuff. And they are fine, adjusted kids now. I think currently parents are waiting until they're like, I'm waiting till my kid's 6 or 7, and I can't wait for them to show my favorite movie. Before that was like, I can't wait till my kid's 10 or 11 because I'm going to show them Monster Squad. I just think kids are exposed to a lot of different things at an earlier age today. So probably somewhere in between. They're probably like, if someone was going to see the Monster Squad for the first time and understand what was going on or enjoy what was going on, it's probably somewhere between 8, 9, 10-ish.
Yeah, they said after that they have a 9-year-old. I would say judge by what your child can handle. Maybe that's what I did with my son. I kind of I tried to throw him in the horror realm and try to throw things at him, and just if he didn't like something, I'd shut it off immediately or whatever. But now he doesn't even like horror movies.
Yeah, it'll go in
very
phases.
cynical.
It'll come back. It'll come back. I have interactions with parents of kids and multiple children that they're like, hey, my 7-year-old loves it. My 10-year-old's scared shitless of it. It's just like you said, it's up to the individual. Mm-hmm. And so, when we ask for movie night, my 7-year-old goes, Monster Squad. My 10-year-old's like, no. So like I said, I think it's definitely up to the parents and the individual. But I definitely think, younger kids handle stuff better than we probably used to when we were 8, 9, 10 back in the day.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't allow, like so Steve, I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies until later on. I think I might have snuck a few things, but I don't
Yeah.
know, for some reason, I remember being scared of a lot of weird things when I was little.
But I didn't even know it was the YouTube name, but that's actually my cousin that asked that question. So that was my. So I'm glad you came in. Thanks. So,
Hope we didn't offend your kitty too much. I don't know if that's your kitty in the picture or not.
I didn't even really see the picture. I was
It's
like,
a little, I think, orange and white, possibly cat. I don't know. It's kind of hard to see.
Okay. Yeah, on my screen it's kind of small. I can't really see the icon. I didn't zoom in on it. That's why I didn't even realize it was him there.
But yeah, I was just going off the picture.
There we go, Monster Squad, keeping it in the family.
I don't know if my son has seen it. He's 16. I'm not sure if he's seen it yet or not. Like I said, I've tried to push horror movies on him, and he's just like, and goes away. And he's just very cynical about movies.
Oh, well, I think that's another on the other side, not just the young side of the age equation, but on the older side of the age question with any type of movie. But if we're talking about Monster Squad in particular, I think it loses its kind of interest or its zeal or its zing or its spice, at a certain age, because we just become, either interested or are uninterested in things. And even if we may kind of want to watch this movie, we're not going to allow ourselves to enjoy it because it's just, it's not cool to watch this movie or to like something like this now. With that said, that's kind of the whole entire theme of the Monster Squad. It's like, it's okay to enjoy something and be different. But we are so afraid as individuals when we were kids of we're almost more afraid of being ridiculed as we are of not fitting in. We'd rather not fit in than to actually be actively pointed out for doing something weird or ridiculed or made fun of. We'd rather not have any interaction or have any kind of activity than to be actually actively ridiculed or made fun of. And I think that's unfortunate. I don't know how we get through to kids with that. I think the lucky ones are the ones that they like what they like and they're going to enjoy it and they're going to read about it. They're going to read comic books. They're going to watch anime. They're going to watch old sci-fi movies or they're going to watch horror movies. It's just, especially in the main context of certain generations here, now it's different. It's a whole gaming, it's a whole social media, TikTok world of what's cool and what's not cool. But back in the day, we all had those segmented, groups of kids. And that's what Monster Squad, it's a group of misfits that are really into something. It's really into comics and monster lore and monster movies and a little bit of sci-fi. And if you actually look at those kids, those are the kids that really know history and know literature and know pop culture much better than the cool kids. And probably grow up to be better or more adjusted than the kids that are very single-minded or only worried about status quo or only worried about fitting in whatever is cool du jour. And I remember feeling the same way when I was a kid. I always thought that I was pretty, popular and trendy and hip. And I realized, many years after when it mattered, that I never really, I'm the ultimate misfit. I never really, no matter where I was, even though I was comfortable in very many environments, I never really fit in 100% in any of them because something would always pluck you out and stand you alone and spotlight you a little bit. And, that goes for all of us that grew up in the, film and TV business as kids. No matter how well adjusted your upbringing was, and no matter how much exposure you had to what some people call a normal life, which just means not in the industry kids. And I did. That was a very big part of my childhood and adolescence was growing up and having, if I wasn't working on set and I was in regular school, what people call normal, it's just called school. You were in actual school that you and your neighborhood friends or that you had to go to. And I loved being in school. There wasn't one year of school all the way through college that I didn't like. I loved being in school because I loved being around friends. I loved being active, and I loved learning shit. And yeah, tests suck and writing papers is
Yeah.
annoying, but it's all about the process. But I loved going to school. And when I wasn't in school because I was working, you're actually still in school on the set. But if I was in regular school for 3, 4, 5, 6 months at a time, or in summertime, and you're playing with your non-industry kids in the neighborhood, I fit in just fine with them. And I was part of we had groups of friends. But to them, I was always the kid that's just part of our group, but I was also the kid that was on TV. So you're automatically a little bit different, no matter how embracing and kind of accepting a group of kids are. You are automatically different, and then that's also reverse. In the entertainment world, where it's like, oh wait, you go to regular school, like you have friends outside the center, like you know how to play little league, and you go do this activity. So you're a little different almost everywhere. And whether you're the nerdy kid at your school group, or your summer camp group, or you're the smart kid, or whether you're the kid that's famous, I had my feet in a lot of different types of groups, but I never had 2 feet firmly planted in one for an extended amount of time. And I realized that was probably difficult back then, but it didn't faze me. That's just who I was. And I think that makes you who you are. And I think a lot of those kids that just, only had one type of experience, when they did have to grow up and be part of something else, they kind of stay in the same groups. And I think we see that with a lot of human kind of group interaction. I still never, no matter where I'm at, I don't fit in. I don't fit in.
It's going back into the time, like we're just saying, it's like you're in so many like amazing, like popular TV shows from back in the day. Like I remember one really stuck out to me was Knight Rider, because that was one of my favorites. I had the little kit car. I think he was like, I don't know how well you could see on the screen, but it was like a big car. It had a light on it or whatever. But you got to sit in not once, but 3 times. How was that experience?
My whole B plot of an episode of Knight Rider had nothing to do with humans. It was just me and Kit. And,
Yes.
that was just an example of a, regular audition day that you have to, read lines and show up on set. And had the show been on for a couple of seasons and we were all kids growing up watching it. Yeah. Like, damn right. I get
that had to be amazing.
And, didn't even care about doing anything with Hasselhoff. Who cares about it? It was like, I'm hanging out with Kit. And who knows? I mean, who knew back in that day that everybody's car would now be Kit? It was like our phone talks to us. We have maps in the dashboards. Like it tells us where to go, what to do. It solves equations for us while we're driving down the freeway. When you have random thoughts like, what is 1,235 multiplied by 10,500? Like your car will answer that now. Yeah. And which we shouldn't have turbo boost and stuff like that.
But, it was my husband's.
and most aren't bulletproof, but
he was quiet and said there was no turbo boost.
That's right. It was certainly awesome, to be. A lot of kids got to do an episode of Knight Rider, but very few of us got to do an episode of Knight Rider compared to all of the other 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds out there in America. And so you're part of this very small group that get to do cool shit like that. Whether you think it's cool at the time or not, it is. And you have to understand that, appreciate and respect it, that you're part of a very small group of people that had a little bit of multiple examples of interaction with iconography, throughout your childhood. I think probably, doing an episode of Knight Rider and an episode of the A-Team and things like that, it's like not.
It was A-Team, Night Court. There's another one I used to watch, Night Court.
Oh, sure. I think Night Court is one of the best sitcoms of all time.
Yes.
Just because of the actors and the writing. It was absolutely genius. And to see, to actually be a fan of a show and to be on that set is always, a delight. And everybody on that show is absolutely funny. And my episode of Night Court was interesting and paradigm shifting for the show, because the original bailiff, Selma Diamond, who was the older kind of bailiff that was the the foil to Richard Moll's Bull. She was the old kind of wizened curmudgeon, and they played off each other. She was in that episode, and then she wasn't feeling well. And so they wrote her out of that episode. She didn't shoot the episode on the Friday evening. And then I think she passed away like the next week or the week after.
Oh.
So that's when that character changed, and they replaced Selma Diamond as to go as the bailiff. And it was actually even prior to Marky Post being on that show. It was in the early seasons of Night Court. So I love, I think that show was hilarious. I thought Richard Moll creating a character of this dumb bailiff that was just the nicest human, that, the biggest, scariest guy ever. If everybody was supposed to be a Frankenstein, that's him.
Right.
But literally wouldn't hurt a fly, kind of a la Frankenstein.
I think like his character, kind of like helped me with kind of learning not to judge people by the way they look. It's like I worked a lot of fast food before I ended up getting hurt and I can't work anymore. But there was this one place I used to work, and there was this, you would consider him, just looking at him, he was like this big scary biker dude. He'd all tatted up. He's got a jacket on where some of the kids would be scared to wait on him, and I'd wait on him. He's the nicest guy ever. It's like I would never act like, oh, you're scary or whatever, but yeah, he was just the nicest guy ever.
Well, I mean, I think that's a great example. You can't, and using Richard Moll as Bull's character, I think is a better example than most. You bring up a great point about characters and judgment and humans. Your biker guy, that element and that kind of that look and that thing, when it comes down to it, it's usually a facade. It's usually a shield. It's a lot of people's defense mechanism. There's not that, especially like the biker mentality, leather jacket, tattooed beard, whatever. And whether you actually ride a motorcycle or not, you probably should if you're going to carry on the biker mentality. You shouldn't be that much of it, but you should actually ride a bike. But even that is not kind of the renegade, or you're actually falling into a group and acting and looking just like another group. You just want to fit in somewhere. And that's all we want to do. And, that kind of circles back to our being misfits and trying to connect somewhere. And that's what, Ryan Lambert has a fantastic kind of deep dive into, the character of Rudy, and that he's actually not that kid. All the hair, the spiky hair is just a protective helmet. The sunglasses are a shield. The leather jacket is just armor. The lighting of a cigarette is a distracting weapon. And Rudy is probably the most vulnerable kid in the group. And he just why is he hanging out with kids that are a year or two younger than him? We need him, but he needs us just as much, because he needs to fit in somewhere, because we can only kind of speculate on what Rudy's, home life is like, or his history. And, who knows? We've seen it a lot. Maybe Rudy 2 years ago was Horace. We just don't know. And I think that interaction, whereas everybody wants to be Rudy because they think he's just a cool kid from the start, Ryan dispels that a lot when he talks about that character, I think. And I think really who you want to be is you want to be Horace, because we're all Horace. We're all Horace we all start off as a Horace, and it just depends on our situation or our experiences or our decisions. Do we become what Horace does at the end, which is he steps up, not only, steps up for himself, he steps up for the better of everybody, but he also steps up for his
tormentors. Yeah.
And that's a big step. That is a big hero move that not everybody will do. And so everybody thinks Rudy's the badass hero. And I'm like, you need to watch it again. You need to check it out from this angle. And I think that's a great example of why I think maybe even when it's unknown or not understood of what connects with kids when they watch Monster Squad and things like Monster Squad, it really is the heart and authenticity of these characters and the archetypes that are just all over the place, which is basic Jungian psychology. It's good versus evil. It's, kids, it's parents, it's misfits, it's it's all this basic structure that we deal with, in our young human existence. all wrapped up into one short film, and where we come out of that. And a lot of people think Sean's a hero. I think Sean's just a decent, focused, inherently good manager. And Sean is smart enough to know that he needs people around him to get the job done. I think Rudy is someone who's already been through something, that understands what this group needs, but he also needs a connection. So he joins forces and has a little of the, quote unquote muscle. And I don't think that, if you look at, with the character of Phoebe is the actual hero of the story. She's the one that actually saves the world. Why? Because she is the sacred feminine. She's, what we used to actually worship before we got all kind of like, post common era, with mythology and religions and things like that. And, so it even harkens back there. It's a little, if you skew it from that direction, we've got all these things working in this story that we don't pay attention to, but they're there because they're kind of archetypes. But that's why they connect with people.
I'm sorry, I was just reading the comments. Mr. Bones was talking about the creature stole his Twinkie. It's like, yeah, Eugene had bad luck. There's a monster in his closet. Then he gets his Twinkie stolen. He's just like the one that everything happens to.
And that if you realize no one ever pays attention.
Yeah.
So well, the army people showed up, but everything
was a little late.
That's it, right? That's right.
How'd the kid contact the army? That's
all you need is a crayon and a stamp. That's all you need. So
army,
that's all you need. I like to think the interdimensional hijinks that were happening is what spurned the local kind of like National Guard base to activate and roll down the street in a World War II tank. Which was not current. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what's interesting about Eugene. A lot of people say, why is Eugene there? And I think what it is Eugene is an example of where we all start. We all have those. We've all been that kid to be like, I saw this. Like, no, you didn't. Right. Like, I saw that. You're like, no. You're like, Dad, I'm telling you, there's a monster in my closet. Like, there's no monster in your closet, and he's standing right there. That's
from the monster.
I think what it looks like, on the page and on the screen is, jokes for jokes' sake, and those are very funny, on the nose, beat, bang with the punchline, humor and comedy. Does that happen? Yes, but if you look a little further back and a little deeper, you realize that Eugene is where we all start, and we've all had those stories. And it's that situation when you were 5, 6, 7, 8 year old and you're outside and you're like, I swear to God, I saw a monster in the woods behind my house. You're not going to believe, it was there. And your cousin or your older brother or your mom or something's like, no, you're just imagining things. What if you weren't imagining things?
Right.
Yeah.
And we always think that, and I think that's what Eugene represents in this movie. I think he represents where we all start, even the other kids in the squad. We've all been in that same situation. Rudy's where it ends up, and some things, and Horace, his character in it. But like I said, the Phoebe character that's just celebrating of what has always had, what should always save the world. It to me, it has nothing to do with the kind of the religified sanctity of purity or whatever. I think that's a little played out and a little erroneous. I think more of it's about the, what Dan Brown, would celebrate as the sacred feminine, like I said, and really what the power is in that. And the power is that can save your damn world.
And I believe it was Eugene that goes to him, is she a virgin? So in a way, you kind of help too. Like,
which technically, wouldn't they be virgins? I was like, why does it have to be a girl?
Well, that's the conversation that comes up, years and years. And, most of that's rooted in Judeo-Christian, and even just prior kind of mythology about that, that virginal spirit. And then if you're not, then you're somehow not able to save the world, or should be able to save the world, which I think is unfair. I think it should go back deeper into mythology and ancient, civilization mindset of worshiping the goddess instead of just the, male god figure that's just all kind of brute and force. And but you want some strength and some power. Yeah. Male figures and male deities can sure destroy shit. They can't create it. They can't create it.
Yeah, I think Hocus Pocus, off the top of my head, is like the only one that's ever used a male version.
Right.
At least off the top of my head. You know, there could be others, but that's the only one. Everything else it's got to be a woman.
Right.
Yeah.
Frankie said Dracula was bogus. As one of the comments. Yeah, some of these comments are great. We've skipped over a lot because we've been talking, but I didn't know Mr. Bones had brought up Richard Mole is in Sleigh Bells. I did not. There's a Christmas movie called Sleigh Bells. I've been meaning to watch it for the last couple of years. I had no idea Richard Mole was in it.
He's great. I mean, what a great, iconic. He's mostly known for Night Court, but I mean, we all strive for that. You know, if you're an actor, you all, everybody would give their left something, or they'll write something, or both. To have, to attain that type of status, to be some sort of, character. Like, we all strive for, immortality.
Yeah, he was in House as well.
Yep.
But yeah, he's great though.
I think you'd have a great. I may have to put something together. I think you have two really iconic, talented, physical specimens of people. If you put Richard Mole and Tom Noonan together on screen. And do something with them, and it'd be funny if you actually did a comedy instead of a dark horror movie. Tom Noonan's usually playing a creepy guy in something because he's so good at it, but that'd be interesting if it was reversed. Maybe I'll go write that movie. We can cast.
There you go.
Tom Noonan and Richard Mole in some sort of story,
or do it some sort of like reverse thing, like with Tucker and Dale versus Evil, where you think that they're the bad guys, but they're actually not. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's where you want to go with it. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. There, you got to. Both those guys are so iconic, just physically, but they're very talented performers as well. And I don't know why people aren't tapping into that.
Right.
Which is interesting because we kind of. This industry, filmmaking and television, it's a cyclical thing. You have, pockets of, famous people or, people that are popular. I think social media and reality television have kind of skewed that a little bit now of who celebrity should be. Because now I think celebrity is a different category. It's a different definition. Celebrity now, I think, is you have some celebrity if you're just famous for some sort of reason that you're famous. Doesn't matter what the reason.
Time it's stupid.
Yeah, and most of the time it is. So I think I think performers and people that have talent are not saying that people that are on reality shows don't have talent. Some may. I just haven't seen it. For the most part. For the most part.
I like it.
For the most part. Yeah, and I will pluck out of that snarky comment, a lot of the performing type of reality shows, like competitions, like Idol and The Voice, and
right. Yeah, I wouldn't put them in the same category at all.
Because the ones that are really good, they're not there to be reality stars.
Right. You're talking about like Big Brother and the Housewives and stuff.
They're gifted performers.
I'm assuming. I don't know. I can't watch those shows.
No, it's
like
tough,
I have a lot of like friends and stuff on Facebook. They're like, "Oh, you got to watch this." I swear to God, I'm like the only one that does. Like, no, I don't want anything to do with any of that.
Yeah, I think it's tough, and I think that like I said, I think actors, performers, whether they're, like if you got talent, hopefully your talent gets seen and celebrated, and I find it frustrating personally sometimes, not for me, but for other people that I know are extremely talented, whether, be it the singers or songwriters or musicians or actors or directors or writers that aren't getting this. They should be getting a lot more attention than they are to some people that just have zero reason for even anybody knowing their name, except for the sake of someone creating some false, persona or creating something that isn't real. Yet it is real because it gets created and it gets resonated with, and that really is what entertainment is. Entertainment's just taking, entertainment was just it's kind of taking a different path for a little bit. I can say it with all my curmudgeon-y self that I can. What's interesting is I think the amazing and my friend Barbara Crampton tweeted the other day, I think, so she said something like, "Hey, filmmakers and writers, when you're looking at putting, when you're pitching names for your films or your shows, remember that all the names that made you enjoy what you're doing, and we're all still around. And we would love to be considered for your thing. Like, don't forget all these great names." And she actually put it out there for people to list their favorite, old school people. And I felt great and very honored to be mentioned in some of those. And I was like, yeah, I mean, why? That's what I think. Like, why isn't Richard Mall? So, Tom Noonan works regularly, but I'm like, these people are amazing. And, why aren't we, going back or revisiting some of these amazing people that created the situations that you are now either copying or trying to resurrect or, celebrating with homages to your thing. I think it's great. I don't think you ever fail in an endeavor as a director or a casting person or a producer or someone that goes back and puts someone in something that is really solid at what they're doing. And I think people like Tom Noonan and Duncan Regeer, and look, we've seen John Grease, who played, the desperate man who turns into Wolfman in Monster Squad. He's one of the best character actors out there. And he's definitely on my top 5 of all-time character actors. And, right behind Stanley Tucci, is these guys that are so good in whatever role that they take on. And why wouldn't you think of these people? And it's refreshing that, some people are starting to talk about that again.
And Jerry Garcia comes in again with a couple good comments. I actually forgot this was going to be one of my questions as well, but I think they word it better. It's popping. I really enjoy Square One, and in particular MathNet. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Hadn't thought of that show in a while. I remember Square One being an important part of my childhood, and as a latchkey kid in the 80s, having quality educational programs. I can't read. Like Square One or Schoolhouse Rock before it slipped into time slots between cartoons was a great idea. Thank you for your participation in making that happen. Do you have any interest in producing a modern content for children, education or otherwise?
One great question. Thanks for the opening part of that was fantastic. I'm glad that you watched PBS when you were a kid, because not many of us did. But when we were growing up, there wasn't a lot of programming, and PBS. I loved PBS. I liked learning stuff, and I always liked stuff about animals. And which is funny is if it came up with math, and I would probably turn off. I would probably change the channel.
I think I did too. I remember I got in trouble because those like old magazines that was about animals or whatever, and you had to call this like 1-800 number, and you're supposed to have your parents' permission or whatever.
Right.
I forget what magazine it was, but it was something all to do with animals. Well, I tried to order some. I got the number. I would assume it was PBS or something. But yeah, because I think we only had like 3, because I'm old. So we had like the 3 stations. And
yeah, that's all we had. And PBS was one of them. It had to be part of your local programming. And Square One was, aimed at kids, and, usually on Saturday mornings and afternoons, I believe, in my market. And great content, great programming. Just really good stuff that you didn't, was blatantly educational, and then sometimes not so blatantly educational. And MathNet, of course, was a spoof off of Dragnet, and it was, these 2 detectives that solved crimes using math, and how unappealing, to someone in probably 6th or 7th or 8th grade could that possibly be? Yet I have met thousands and thousands of fans of MathNet over the years, and that warms the cockles of my heart. Not only just that there's some hope for the youth in America, and hope it's still going on, especially in my generation, but that I got to be a part of it. And they remembered my episode. I only did 1 episode. They chopped it up into small bits. So like 1 episode lasted like, a while. And that was super fun. And if you watch it now, it's like it's so campy and over the top, yet actually really well done, and a little bit of genius. Not even having to do with the math, but just the execution of what you're trying to do. and the play on words and the puns, the play on words, the little bit of campiness, the tongue in cheekedness, bringing history in there that you don't realize you're bringing history in there, and like there's all this stuff flying at your face as a kid watching this educational, episodes of a show about math, and I like, it was a story about a kidnapping, and like I wore a shirt that said "May the floss be with you," and it was just sort of like a little subliminal message to like brush and floss. It's like how campy yet genius is this? And that happens to be, ironically, probably one of the least seen things I've ever done, but one of the most talked about things, because what that means is MathNet connected and made an impact on people, which is what you want. And I played a character named Rimshot, who's a drummer, and I think I was the president of the fan club of this rock star who gets kidnapped, and his name was Steve Stringbean, which was a play on Bruce Springsteen, and I was the local fan club chapter president, and I was a drummer, and I fully admit that I didn't understand what I was supposed to do with a bit of the dialogue, and Ryan Lambert always makes fun of me, and I had no idea what they were trying to do, and I just delivered it wrong, and it stayed, and it's terrible, but I love the fact that I'm the only rim shot on MathNet that ever was, and I still have the "May the floss be with you" T-shirt.
Nice.
Pretty soon we'll have flossing rules T-shirts.
that is a double mashup deep cut that only someone that knows me or watched those two shows will ever know.
Right, you're like somebody that's like real popular or like really into like Fortnite would come up to you and think it had something to do with that.
They might. Well, they'd come up with the same thing, like, someone you're taking a picture at an event, or someone that wears the Stephen King Rules shirt, and they're like, "Oh my God, I love Stephen King," and you're like, "Yeah, he's great. He's great." He really is. And they're like, "I love all of his books. What's your favorite?" And I was like, "There's so many to choose from." And they're like, "No, really?" And I was like, "They're like, you know," and then the fan, like, I have to be nice to these people. The fans are like, "You don't know what, go away." Like, you don't get where this, you got to go. Yeah, Stephen King, he's great. Move along. Non-Monster Squad fan. It's good. I'm like, it's okay. Let's convert them. Let's explain them. Let's convert them. Because a lot of people ask, like, why are you signing a shirt that says Stephen King? I'm like,
why are you in my line?
Right. So yeah, why are you? Yeah. It's few and far between, but again, it's amazing what that shirt ended up becoming, and it was not a planned thing, but and now it's not only a cool thing that's associated with me, but it's really associated. It's become sort of the kind of banner or billboard, kind of hidden message. When people wear a Stephen King Rule shirt, and you get that look from the other side of the room from someone that goes,
I know.
They go, "Yeah, I am a Monster Squad fan," and they go, "So am I," and then they become friends, and I've heard a ton of stories like that. And they become friends for forever, and it's sort of, I have my own story like that, but it's a little more meta because it's me. And there was a great comedy night at a venue in LA called The Meltdown, which was a comic book shop, and they had a theater in the back, and it was basically like in the storeroom of this comic book store, and you'd get 200 something people in there watching comedy night, and Kumail Nanjiani and Jonah Ray used to host this night of comics. You go and see some amazing comics. And afterwards, there was a Halloween party at this restaurant. And I walked in, and Jonah Ray and they all, they invited me to go to this Halloween party. People are in costume because it's Halloween. And I walked in and I'm looking around this place. I'm like, I don't really know anybody here. I was like, I gotta mingle and meet some new friends. And I was like, who am I gonna meet? And I looked across the room and there was this tall kid. I say kid because he was 20 years younger than I am or something. And this tall kid wearing a Stephen King Rules shirt and a pair of blue jeans. And I realized, I said, oh shit, it's Halloween and this guy is me. And I just started walking towards him and he saw me. And he's like, oh no. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I feel so embarrassed. And I just walked up and I said, how's it going? I like your costume. He's like, yes, I get it. And he's like, this is so uncomfortable. I was like, trust me, it's more uncomfortable for me than it is for you. He's like, oh my God. He's like, hi, my name's Adam. And I was like, Adam, my name's Andre. He's like, I know. And I'm like, so what do you do? And he's like, oh, well, I'm a director, I'm a writer, I'm a comic. I'm like, great. That's your stuff. Adam Murray and I are still friends to this day from that night. And so much so that I have been in one of his short films. You don't know it's me. But I'm in one of his short films, which I like. It's called Joe and the Pirates. And I had him on the show that I created that Ryan Lambert and I co-hosted called Short Ends, and he got to showcase one of his short films and be our in-studio guest. And that never would have happened if he wasn't wearing that shirt and was going as Sean Crenshaw for Halloween. So this is, it's insane and very fun to be a part of something that just gets as crazy, campy, marvelous, weird, dumb, or absurd as this Monster Squad world has become.
That's awesome. You would never think you'd have connections like that. Just meet randomly. It was like, hey, so you're dressed like me. Let's be friends.
That's right. I mean, and it's usually, like I said, if someone's wearing the Stephen King Rule shirt, that they meet each other. But it happened to me seriously one night. I'm like, this is crazy. I've ran into people at Trader Joe's. I was at home in LA. My favorite lunch spot is directly across the street from a Trader Joe's, and I saw this guy walk in from the parking lot with his girlfriend into the Trader Joe's, and I was like, oh, I got to walk to the Trader Joe's now. I'm going to go talk to this guy. And
go stocking level.
I was with people. I was like, I'll be right back. And I found him, in the aisle by the cereal or whatever it was. And I was like, it's like, hey, good shirt. And he kind of froze and went, oh my God. And this was right when It came out. And we were shooting the documentary, but the shooting came out. And It had just come out. And his girlfriend goes, oh yeah, we just saw It. Have you seen It? And I'm like, actually, I haven't seen It, but I've seen the trailer a million times and, looking forward to see it. Because we were on tour. And then if you see in the documentary, we were in all those Alamo draft houses. Every night before they showed Monster Squad on the 30th anniversary tour, they showed the trailer for It. So I saw the It trailer like 485 times. And I'm like, no, I haven't seen It yet, but I heard it's fun. And he's like, stop talking. It's like, no, it's like I like he really got me into Stephen King. And I was like, great, like Stephen King's amazing. And he's like, will you be quiet, please? She's just talking about It. She's like, oh, we just saw it. You have to see it. It's great. And like, I got him. And he's like, will you please stop talking? And because she had no idea who I was. And he's sitting there just melting in he's just dying. And I was like, well, hey, what's your name? And whatever. I don't remember their names. And I walked off and I was like, it's okay. I was like, don't get too mad. And then I just said, okay, you guys have a great day. And I walked off, and I hope they stayed together after that. So he was a little embarrassed and a little mad at the time.
Either that or they had a movie night that night.
Yeah, maybe.
Who you embarrassed me in front of?
And I was like, it's okay. There's no way she should know who I am. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And but that's the power of the shirt. That's the power of the shirt.
Oh, that's funny.
I've met a lot of people at Trader Joe's that are Monster Squad.
So if you're in LA and you go to Trader Joe's, wear one of these if you want to be stalked. No, I'm kidding.
You might be stopped, and While I'm trying to get my bag of carrots, we might hang out for a little.
I'm assuming that's like a grocery. We don't have any here, so I'm
Yeah,
assuming
Trader.
it's
Yeah,
like
it's a grocery store.
Trader
Yes.
Joe's,
It's a grocery store. They are proliferating across the country, but they are mostly a West Coast thing. Look, I've had more people come up to me at Trader Joe's and the grocery store and my lunch spot that I'm, kind of friends with, and it's crazy, and I'm still in touch with them. I've been getting a refill of tea at my lunch spot, and a guy walks up and says something like, the Wolfman does have nards, and I was like, hey, how's it going? And we sat down, and we're still friends. And his name's Mike Callio. He's a cool dude. He's a director and filmmaker, and super cool dude. And I've been in that same Trader Joe's, and this guy steps up and says, "Man, I just got to tell you, this my favorite movie." And I was like, "Oh, what's your name?" He's like, "My name's Johnny." And I was like, "What do you do?" He's like, "Well, I'm a dance instructor." I was like, "Now that's cool." And his name's Johnny Hobbs, and he's a tap dance instructor in LA and a huge Monster Squad fan. And what was awesome is, I got to invite him to the premiere of Wolfman's Got Nards at the Egyptian in LA, and he went and he fucking loved that. I mean, these are cool. You get to meet a lot of cool people. And I get to meet a lot of cool people just because I was involved in this, kind of craziness. And then sometimes they get to meet me. It's like, I think I get the better end of the deal out of that, though, for sure.
That's funny. Too bad you didn't have like something to record like that, and that could have been put into your little fan thing.
Oh,
Wolfman has nards. It's like just start walking up to random people. I was like, not random, but record your interactions with people that have the shirt.
You just never know when it's going to happen. I don't want to be that guy with a camera following me around everywhere at all times. We did that. We did that for almost a year, making the documentary. So it was like, oh, I'm the people like, this would suck.
I saw some of it. There were some fans who were doing some interviews at Spooky Empire in Orlando, and I remember I was not knowing that at the time doing the documentary, but for whatever reason, that was one Spooky Empire I missed. I forget whatever reason it was work. I was like, oh, I could have been part of the documentary. That would have been sweet.
You very well may have if you were there. That was I think the first event that we went and rolled cameras on. Yeah, and we got some good stuff out of that one, and some stuff that lasted. And Matt Cordona, who was Zack Ryder with WWE, he and I became friends on Twitter, and then he lives in Orlando, so we got him on camera. So that was a great get, and that only would have happened by getting invited to something like Spooky Empire and having my crew able to go with us. And that sort of was the first event that we went to and learned what we were going to do and how we were going to do it on the road. And it was a good first experience.
Yeah, Spooky Empire is always a good time. I was just there recently. I've worked with them in the past and stuff. Any plans coming back to Orlando anytime in the future?
I would love to. I mean, one of my best friends from college lives in Orlando, so I when I get there, I get a chance to get to see him. I don't want to say I'll go anywhere, but you can't go anywhere unless you get invited. So it's, I can't just be like, hey, I'm going to come to Spooky Empire.
Just crash Spooky.
Bring your banner and your own table and like set up shop. I guess some people could do this. I set up my own booth in the parking lot, and like, I'm not part of Spooky Empire, but I'm getting everybody that's here. That'd be interesting. Pathetic, but interesting. Hey, look, if we got invited back, it'd be great. I just got announced, we've been returning to some shows that we did way in the back. We just did Monster Mania again for the first time. We actually just officially, Ryan and I just booked Texas Frightmare for end of April, which is the first time we've actually ever going to do Texas Frightmare, which is crazy. Because you would think that's a great show. Yeah, Texas Frightmare is always a good show. So we're going to be there in April. So that'd be great. So if you're in Dallas or Texas, or you're coming to, Texas Frightmare, come on down and
If I have
Where's
some
Stephen
friends
King
who are
rules
going,
shirt?
I don't know. I'll see who might be going because I mean, I'd like to. I mean, like I said, I've been to a couple of Texas Frightmares and it's a really good time. So definitely
Yeah,
recommend it if you're there or like traveling to conventions. That's one to check out for sure.
yeah, I
It's
definitely.
definitely too far for me.
Yeah, they're fun though. But so where
Yeah.
are you? Where are you based?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Let's see. I don't have anything like because next year is actually another anniversary year, which is insane. And so things are starting to heat up and get booked out, 5, 6 months, 7 months in advance. And hell, if there's a show in Madison or Milwaukee or something like that, let us know and contact me, or we'll arrange it. And Ryan and I will get on a plane or a train or an automobile and come
Wait,
hang out
trains
with
or
you.
automobile.
Which is the best way to do it. We've done them all. We've done all three, sometimes in the same day.
Yeah. So I'm in Florida, of course. I'm a few and a half hours from Orlando. I'm in Tallahassee right now. I used to live like about a half hour from Orlando, which was great. But I mean, I still don't mind driving there, so it's not too bad. And
yeah, it's a fun show, and they get great people. And boy, it's been a while. I mean, I think be time to go back to Spooky. I think we were there in 2016 and or 2017. Either 16 or 17, so it's about time to come back, I guess. So haven't been in that area in a while, so
I might have to
send
an email. I might have to send an email to Petey, be like, "Hey, Monster Squad, another anniversary hint."
Tell Pete I said hello, and if he's interested in Ryan and I coming back, hit me up. Contact me directly. That's how I do a lot of my stuff, and we'll figure it out.
So.
Yeah, the only conventions I know of in Wisconsin, well, I haven't lived here that long, but like Madison, I think they have the Wizard World, but I don't know of anything like Spooky or like Days of Dead. That's in Chicago, but I don't know. I won't drive to Chicago. That gives me too much anxiety.
Yeah, I've been.
It's horrible.
Wisconsin's great. It's a little up there. They don't have a lot of shows, I don't think, but
no, I don't think so. I've tried looking for lower budget ones, like because I'm near the Illinois border, like on the probably like mid southern part of Wisconsin, but we go to Illinois quite a bit because I still got family in the middle part of Illinois. But yeah, trying to find stuff that's not in. Because I do not like going to Chicago.
Maybe
I've been to Chicago.
Start our own little pop-up event with just, like 2 or 3 people, and then we'll build up and get some.
We do have a convention. I live in Janesville, and we do have a convention center here. I've never seen a convention done here yet, but we do have a convention center.
I mean, that's how in Tampa and all them. That's how they all start. Just like maybe 2 or 3 guests, and then
that's how they all start. And sometimes it's a good idea to start with, just do a small batch of people or do a special screening of something, and people will come in and watch that and have a little interaction.
Build it, they will come.
That's right, a little round table, and those are always fun. So someone get creative and put something there. And I was just in Milwaukee in September, and I hadn't been there in years, and it's great. And can't wait to go back. It's a great
I've been to Milwaukee a couple. Well, I don't know if other times will count, but because I just dropped my husband off at the airport because he had to go for work or something. But the only time I've really been to Milwaukee, because that's a lot farther away than Madison to me. I don't know if you know who Joe Bob Briggs is, but he was.
I know Joe Bob very well. Yeah.
How could you not know Joe?
I'm a huge fan of him since the 90s. He actually introduced me into horror. I just ran across him one day on Monster Vision, and he was in Milwaukee. They had some sort of screening thing, and then he did his Rednecks of Hollywood. So I went there and I got to meet him, and so I drove to Milwaukee all by myself just so I could see him that day.
That's a great reason. Anytime you get to hang out with Joe Bob, it's a good reason.
Yeah, and, definitely.
He's him and Darcy do a good, great thing now, and they're still packing in the shows, and
I love her. I haven't got to meet her yet. I'd love to meet her.
But... She's really nice.
Yeah, she's great. We were just in Pennsylvania with both of them a month or 2 ago, and I didn't see Joe Bob in a while. Joe Bob, Ryan Lambert and I used to have our own podcast ourselves, and we actually had Joe Bob on our podcast one time, and it was great. And it's really kind of cool to see Joe Bob getting sort of the attention that he should have gotten in the 90s. But there just wasn't, the internet or the kind of that extra, need for that, kind of fringe world. But he goes way back, and he's a character and he's a performer and he's great.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he's still doing what he do, because I don't know who the next Joe Bob Briggs is.
Right. I know. It's like I have literally no pictures of stuff hanging out like anywhere in my house except for one, and it's Joe Bob where he signed it at that thing that I went to.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, I'd rather be associated with people like Joe Bob Briggs than some other great big famous names who happen to be assholes or something. It's he's an icon in his own right, and he's genius, and he's creative, and he's smart, and he's a performer, and he knows what he's doing, and he's created a thing. And I'm glad all the kids that grew up with Joe Bob are the ones that are running stuff and networks like Shudder that are like, hey, wait a minute.
Yes.
Let's now do this for our guy.
That he crashed Shudder the first time he was on.
That's right.
Yeah, I wasn't able to. I tried so damn hard to watch that first. I had to watch it later on because it crashed down and I couldn't watch it. But I remember watching that.
Which means there are a lot of people trying to log in that you weren't, expecting on your cloud service, I guess, or your server infrastructure. But I think they got that worked out now.
They got that figured out.
I think they crashed it one other time, but I don't remember offhand what episode it was. But I don't think it was near the level as it was the very first one.
No, that was a big iconic moment for him and for Shudder itself. And that's big news and good thing for Shudder. I mean, it was smart that they did that. To bring on sort of that different type of programming, which I think they need more of. They need another iteration of Joe Bob, maybe in a different context or different vein. Not even if you look, I think if you look at streamers are different, but you can also look at it as like networks. I love what TCM is doing now, because TCM would just be Turner Classic Movies, and it's just 24 hours, 7 days a week of old movies. But now they're getting some of their on-camera, personalities and their hosts, and it's a wide range, it's a diverse range of hosts and academics and experts, and they're bringing in filmmakers and doing kind of, they're curating, differently, and they have their own thing. They have noir and they have genre now. Genre is part of TCM, and then they have, late night weird shit, which, used to be, Monster, what Joe Bob did with Monster Vision. And this is on Turner Classic Movies now. And it's crazy to turn on Turner Classic Movies and see movies that aren't that old, but are old enough to be on TCM, and you're like, I'm getting old.
Yeah, it's like when you listen to the radio and you hear a classic, it's like, that's not a classic, that was popular. Like my son, he's like really into like AC/DC right now. He's like, this is like classic music. I was like,
classic rock.
No, this was popular when I was in high school. Shut your mouth.
Classic rock. And you're like, no, it's not classic. But that's what happens. We go in these cycles and we get old, and we get to celebrate the stuff that we dig. And I think Shudder, like doing the Joe Bob thing, I think hopefully they ideas and do other stuff to to add even more programming like that. I think it would be smart. I'd love to do an iteration of my show Short Ends that Ryan and I about the short films. I think that would be great, on a streamer or on another network, because we did our show on Nerdist's pay channel, which was Alpha, that only lasted a couple of years because no one watched it, and people liked our show and watched it. Just the network itself, no one was watching that monthly subscription fee channel. But Shudder's lasted. It's got AMC behind it, so they get good content and they get good support. And I know the people that run it, and they're all awesome. So I'm glad Shudder is getting that niche audience, and it's growing and growing as it should.
Yeah, and they've got a lot. I know some people gripe about some of their like original content, but some of their stuff's like really good. Or they'll get something that's like a original or exclusive or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, some people might think it's like low budget stuff, but really it's not. It's like some of their stuff's like really good.
Oh yeah.
At least in my opinion. But
and then some of it's exactly what it's supposed to be. When you're doing like your I forget what it's called. The After Dark. They did. It's not a series, but they were doing little one-offs, and I know a lot of cool filmmaker friends that got a chance to do small features and put them on the service as part of their programming, and that's just great. It's great for the genre. It's great for filmmaking in general. It's great for these creators and these directors and these writers and these actors, and I don't know why more things aren't, really embracing that. And I'm glad that's starting to kind of proliferate a little bit wider, because we all need content and we need new voices. We need new faces, and some older faces, like to be around. So I think these are great opportunities for the whole range of folks that are involved. And it's good for the fans. The fans like content.
True.
The fans will eat it up.
Right. Yeah, they just had Elvira's 40th anniversary thing on Shudder not too long ago too.
Cassandra's great, and what a perfect place to have her be, honored and celebrated for the icon that she is. And she's fantastic. I mean, when you say Elvira, you know exactly who you're talking about. Same thing if you know Joe Bob, you know who Joe Bob. Elvira was even more, even became a worldwide name, much more so than Joe Bob did, almost at the same time. I mean, she was endorsing giant national brands and was in movies of her own, and that means she took something, became it, and owned it, and made a dent in the world.
Yeah, I remember watching
a great character
commercials and stuff when I was little.
Oh yeah, yeah. Cassandra Peterson created an amazing character there.
Yes,
and it was great because she and I, for a number of years, had the same agent, and so we would be at the same functions and holiday parties, and I was like, this is Elvira. You look nothing like Elvira. It's like you're gorgeous as it is, but like Elvira is this whole thing. You've created this, this icon out of nothing, based off a spoof with some tongue-in-cheek campy comedy that just became this powerhouse that was huge, went away, and is now back, with all the full force that Elvira should be. And I'm glad we're all celebrating that again.
Yeah, I got a picture. I met at the very first con I ever went to. I met her, and I'm like, all kind of like smiles and kind of like she's sitting in her thing. She was dressed as herself as Cassandra, so I'm just like, oh yeah, just huge smile because she's this like one of my idols. Like her and Joe Bob has been my idol since for like ever, and so meeting her, I think I knew of her before Joe Bob because I remember seeing like the old commercials in I think the 80s of her before I even knew. I didn't get introduced to Joe Bob till like 90s, so I was in high school. But yeah, it was definitely a big thing for me.
they're two great icons and two great faces and really cool people, and I'm glad they're still around, and I'm glad they're getting the attention that's due.
Ryan Peterson.
Yeah, I was just about to read that. We both saw that at the same time. He says, what are your scariest horror movies? I'm not sure if he means what's your favorite horror movies or scariest you've worked on. I'm not quite sure on that, but he said,
it's probably what's the scare, like what do I think is scary? Honestly, the first horror movie that scared the shit out of me was The Wizard of Oz, and you can argue with me that Wizard of Oz is not a horror movie,
especially the second one.
It's a fucking horror movie. The Wizard of Oz is a terrifying horror movie. It starts with a witch getting a house landing on her and dying, and then it's this other dimension, and it's a dream world. It's the original Freddy Krueger story. It's got witches and monsters and flying monkeys and, lions and tigers and oh my. It's absolutely terrifying. It's terrifying. So Wizard of Oz is the scariest horror movie I've ever seen. Is usually my go-to answer.
I think that's the best answer I've ever heard.
That's my go-to answer. But then if you have to update that and people won't let me have it, I usually say I think Freddy Krueger was probably a terrifying idea because he doesn't exist. I mean, it's in your mind, and it happens when you're his evil happens when you're supposed to be at your safest, when you're freaking asleep. Right. And so, the place you go to have dreams and recharge so you can live the next day is tainted by his evilness. And so Freddy Krueger is a scary concept. Are the movies super scary? Yeah, they're pretty scary. They're pretty fucking scary, especially when you're young watching those. But I just think the concept is terrifying. Yeah, the concept is terrifying because it's in your mind, and those are always the worst type of stories. but blatant kind of obvious 3-dimensional real life things like a creature or a monster, like you can run away and you can avoid those and you can put some distance between yourself, but not if he's in your mind. He ain't going anywhere.
Agreed. He said, I know I'm going to butcher the name of this movie, but they responded back mine was Martras, M-A-R.
The Martyrs.
Go ahead. Martyrs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never say that right.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen the Martyrs I haven't seen the Martyrs either, but I've heard some other people have mentioned Martyrs to me. I haven't. I need to take. I should take a lot of my downtime now and watch more things that I've never seen. But I just don't do that. Like the last years, if I have some downtime, if I'm not on the phone or if I'm not working on something or traveling, I've got my nose in a book. And so I like to just kind of, I read so much now that I lose a little bit of viewing time, but I think that's going to change. I think coming into this next year, I get to add some stuff to my library of consumed content and start scratching off some things on the list. So I'll put that on the list for sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but this one's actually on Shudder. I think it might be an exclusive. I don't think it's original, but it's I think Argentinian film, something like that, but subtitled. But it was the movie I think I watched it like a couple years ago. The first time I watched it, I literally had to shut it off. This is rare for me. I had to shut it off because I got creeped out. So I had to shut it off and like come back to it, but terrified. Not Terrifier with the clown,
Not
but
Terrifier, right? But terrified. Yeah.
It is like, oh my God. It was the first time I watched it, I had to shut it off and then I had to physically go back. And I watched it during the day because my husband don't like horror movies, so I usually got to watch stuff during the day.
Right.
And I literally had to shut it off and it's like, nope, I'm getting creeped out. I have to come back to this later. But yeah, it was really, really spooky. They say the movie they was talking about wouldn't recommend to anyone though. Disturbing French gives you PTSD. Ooh, I might have a tough one with that one because I got a little bit of PTSD. So I don't know. Depends on what the PTSD is from.
Right, whatever the triggers are. And that's what's interesting. That's what's interesting about horror films. Some things connect and trigger people differently than others, or elicit experiences or memories, either good or bad. And things can be scary on the whole in general, but something can really kind of impact someone because of a personal experience or a personal, predilection to something, and really affect them. And some people, can watch the same movie and have two totally different reactions to it.
Right.
Some could be humorous and some could be terrifying. And it has nothing to do with the execution of the movie, just how it actually hits that individual. But that's what media is. That's what, art is. Media, modern media is just another form of art. And whether it's a painting, you can sit in front of a painting for an hour and see the same thing. And you can come back the next day and look at the same painting and see something completely different, based on your experiences the last 24 hours, or it can elicit a memory from childhood. And that's all movies are. That's all TV stories are. And that's all books are. They're all the same. And they're all about experiencing. It's all about experiencing the art, experiencing the endeavor of the story. And movies just happen to be stories. And those are our oldest form of entertainment. And it goes all the way back to sitting around in a campfire, ancient tribes, and, telling, stories that we've made up to answer questions that we don't know, and questions that we'll never find the answer to. And that's sort of the human condition. And that's just what movies and TV shows and things are now, or it's the new story around the campfire. And what's interesting is, 10,000 years ago, we would sit around our village or our huts or our tribal kind of communal area, and the elders would tell these stories sitting around a campfire, and it's dark and flickering light. And it's funny how 10,000 years later, we do the same thing. We go into a dark room and sit in front of a flickering light and get told stories. And, I think that's what's cool. I think that's what's cool about storytelling.
You'd think like home invasions would like be something I couldn't watch. I got held at gunpoint like during a robbery where I worked,
Good
and I
grief.
literally have looked down a barrel of a gun. So I have a slight PTSD. So you would think I couldn't watch like home invasion movies, but
Right.
I usually that's like one of my genres like go to is kind of therapeutic because
You take
usually
my
the bad
approach.
guys don't win in those.
Right.
The people get the upper hand, and for the most part, I think I don't know. You would think it would be weird. It's like you've been through this, but you can't watch. But you watch this.
Well, I think maybe you're right. Maybe it's more it's a cathartic experience,
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
which ends up being therapeutic, right? And
Right.
when you're watching something like that, it's not you don't have that flight mechanism. You have that I'm going to stay and watch this because I've already been through mine. Theirs can't be. I've already come out the other side of mine, and I'm stronger for it. And hopefully these people do the same thing. And if they don't, then I'll deal with that. But that's insane. I'm not happy that you had to go through that. But if it can get you through something and enjoy a type of movie, then that's your experience and your journey, and that's a great story to tell. As long as you're comfortable telling it, and
Right. Yeah. I have another.
like I said, I think
trigger
it's a
that,
little passage. Yeah.
right. Like I have another trigger, and there's like some movies because of that trigger I cannot watch, but it has nothing related to it's like something like totally different.
Sure.
And something I don't talk about, so that's why I haven't brought it up. But
Yeah.
it's like I can't watch like certain movies that have certain things in it, but but the home invasion ones I can watch all day long. Makes no sense. Some K-Man 847 says Nightmare Before Christmas used to scare the shit out of me.
Well, Tim Burton stuff is scary. I mean,
Yes,
it's coming
that
from a
is
different
true.
part of a mind, even though it's usually animated or stop motion, or even if it's real life, it looks stop motion. He just has a different. That's a good storyteller. That's a good visual storytelling mechanism, and Tim Burton's good. He has his own thing, and just like when you're reading a Stephen King book, or you're reading an Anne Rice novel, or you're reading, a John le Carre or a novel. These stories, you're in that world and you feel it, and you come, you live in that world. And I think Tim Burton's done. He's Tim Burton because he's Tim Burton. If he was like everybody else, no one would give a shit. And he certainly made some iconic stuff, whether you like it or not. That doesn't change that fact.
Right. Our friend Jared Garcia said we had to turn off Wizard of Oz when I first tried to watch it about when they were 5. So you're not the only one. I don't remember one time. I don't think I watched it when I was little. I probably would have been scared of it too. I was scared of weird
Absolutely
things.
terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying.
And Ryan Peterson, they had about the same experience as me at a Burger King. Mine was at a fast food restaurant as well. I got held at gunpoint. I won a life-hating Buddhist. I'm not sure what they mean. Then I so didn't care. It only impacts me right now. I think they mean the
I'm
only
not happy
impacts
that
me at
both
the
of you have
moment.
had terrible experiences, no matter where it is.
True.
So next time, I don't know. Yeah, don't. Let's not have those situations happen to you all anymore. I don't want that to happen.
Luckily, I haven't been held at gunpoint, but I saw a bank robbery. We were driving in the parking lot. We were almost by them. Thankfully, they didn't try to get into our vehicle. I saw a
That's
gun. They had T-shirts wrapped around their face, and they were running out and took off. And did that just? We called the police. We were trying to get the plate and everything. It was like crazy. Like it just that split instant. All of a sudden, just came running out.
Don't rob anybody or any place, but definitely don't rob banks. That's just a bad idea usually, unless you are really, really experienced and have a lot of resources. Banks are not. That's what I'm talking about. They have a lot of experience and a lot of resources behind them. Don't just be that casual afternoon bank robber. You ain't gonna make it.
No.
And it's not. It ain't worth. The odds of you getting away with robbing a bank are very slim.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't catch the ones that robbed me. Like the police said that because it was a string of robberies in that week, and unfortunately, the last one that I'm aware of, somebody ended up getting shot and died from it. But they thought it was a gang initiations. So
Well,
as far as I know,
it usually is
they never
sometimes, and
caught
it's
them.
we've got to find some way of we've been trying to battle and compete against that for years, which law enforcement is an uphill battle on a daily basis, and most people don't understand that. We've got to find some other way to supplement law enforcement with combating the even first stages before they get to that point of wanting to hold up a Burger King or something, and give them different options, not of different options to rob, but different options of not
Life
robbing.
choices, yeah.
That's why we want different life choices for people, and but I'm all for offering choices, and then when you make your choice, you've made your choice,
Right.
and that's you've made your decision. But I think a lot of people don't have many choices, and I think that's something that we need to improve on as a whole. I think we want to. I think that's an uphill battle itself, but I don't think it's as hard as the opponents like to make it out to be. I think there's some. It's not about wiping crime and things like that. You're not going to wipe it out 100% ever. We are humans. It's about making a dent in the percentages, and I think there's some really simple, easy things that don't cost that much that can put a big statistical dent in just your overall numbers. And hopefully we get wise and go back to that and take politics out of a lot of shit and get down to evolving as humans in a society. So it's those are things that need those leaders and those people that are creative and passionate, that can rally those forces to make those changes. I don't know who those and where those people are, but you need to start coming out en masse now.
Right. Ryan also says it was only when I got my anxiety disorder when I was already an adult when horror movies got under my skin. I could see that.
Well, they do a good job of that. They know those
Yeah.
kind of buttons and sounds and strobes of light and little tiny things to get in there, because those are basic psychological kind of tripwires. And if someone has a heightened sense of those things, like you may have, if you have adult diagnosed anxiety order, or some people have can adjust to certain situations, and but those are amplified, I think, in certain horror situations, just because all horror movies are just psychological kind of button pushing. And if someone has a lighter sensor on a particular button, then horror movies really mash that button. And so everybody's got to take it with some a little bit of knowledge going in, and a little bit of restrictor, put a restrictor plate on to know how you can and should or may not even need to go react to that in some way.
I know. It's like here at the house, it's like, even though there's not much crime in town we live in, it's like it doesn't matter. It's like doors have to be locked at all times or I will freak. It's like, no, like I will not be happy if I find out the doors are unlocked. He gets annoyed with me sometimes because I'm like really paranoid. And he's like, yeah, I locked him out of the house a couple times.
Well,
on accident.
At least the doors were locked.
Get up to the show one time because I locked him outside.
Well, at least the doors were locked.
Right. Yeah, it's like super paranoid. He tries to blame it on the movies. I was like, no, it's real life stuff. You don't get it. Yeah, I have locked him out of the house. That's fair. He called me out on it while I was telling it. He's like, you locked me out.
Well, that's funny. Just don't lock me out if ever. That's all right. We'll or don't lock him out, and don't lock him out again. And then it becomes a pattern,
Right.
and then it's not an accident the next time.
I think there's been at least twice I've done it. Just 3.
Oh, he's keeping count.
I only remember twice, but apparently 3 times I've locked him out. This habit, locking the door right behind me.
Right. Well, let's avoid that. Let's avoid the bad experiences. Let's not get locked out of the house anymore, and then we'll all just go to like a convention and hang out and talk movies and take pictures and tell jokes and be campy. Because that's what it's all about. I think we've covered the whole. I think we've covered a good range of topics.
Yes,
uh,
it's been about
yeah.
2.5 hours here.
Yeah, I just noticed that time flies. I've actually got
Yes.
to run because I've got another one right behind you that I've got to do, and I need a little bit of time to go
Okay.
Get
pit
ready,
stop and have a sandwich. But I'm
anything
glad you guys had me on. Hit me on. I hope your viewers and your listeners enjoyed, and please hang out with me. Follow me. Follow your show. Celebrate your podcast. Family that you listen to. Hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Wolfman's Got Nards. If you know of shows or convention or screenings, anybody or you guys, that we should be fun, hit us up. Let us know. That's how we like to do things, is direct with the people that we are engaging with and the fan base, and those are the more fun ones. And look forward to see you all out there as we get back out in the active world. And be safe. Wear your mask when you have to. Wash your hands. And don't lick any doorknobs right now for a while still, and we should all be in good shape. I know we all have to make sacrifices. This is a small one for right now. It's okay though.
They're so tasty.
They are. It's, that tangy, brassy. I get it. I understand. It's
Just
just
like when you take the battery tip on the 9 volts, you like putting it on your tongue.
Yeah. See, it's that metallic acid chemical reaction. I get it. I understand. Just hold off for a bit. The reward's sweeter later when you wait for it for a little bit. And the reward is not having to worry about licking doorknobs. You can do it freely later. It's a much bigger win. And with that, I'm gonna pull the ripcord and go wash some doorknobs. I mean, lick some door. I mean, I wash my hands or something. I don't know what I'm gonna do here.
Wash your doorknobs, lick your hands.
That's right. Wash it, something like that. I'm not really whatever the combination is. Just be safe, everybody, and be smart.
Take care.
All right, guys. Have a great one. See you next time.
You too.
Bye.
That's great. Oh,
Lick your hands, people. Good advice.
give me just like 2 seconds. I've had way too much to drink and I have to laugh too hard. I have to run to the bathroom real quick.
Like bag. Oh, that was fun. Who else we still got in here? Bones. Let's see, Ryan. How you all been? Yeah, thank you, Bones. It was a fun one. Learned some knowledge too while we were at it. We got learned real good tonight. Yeah, so I believe next week, I know, I'm not sure if we're doing it for next week or I forget. I got to check the day. I think it is next week. Today's the 19th, isn't it? I'm not even sure here because I know, or yeah, today's the 18th. So actually, yeah, for our Christmas show, we'll be talking about Christmas horror movies. So that'll be what's going on the next show. So welcome back.
I'm back.
I was just now literally saying for our Christmas show how we'll be discussing Christmas horror movies. So that'll be the theme. So
yeah.
But whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever, stop on by. Happy holidays to you all. However you may celebrate.
Watch the movie Holidays. It has like all sorts of fun and informative.
Yep. And there's actually there is a horror movie Hanukkah. So it's
really? I didn't know that.
So you actually got a Hanukkah horror movie too. So
interesting.
We appeased everybody in the horror genre.
Hey, why not? I didn't know that was a thing. I'll have to see if I can find that.
So I forget if it was just Hanukkah or if there was another name to it. I got it. I believe Bill Moseley even had a part in it, and yeah, it was interesting.
Nice.
So.
Yes, he was very awesome. And I did see your comment about his heart thing, but I already brought down the mood by bringing up the thing about his friend passing away, and I didn't know if you'd want to talk about his health. So that's why I didn't bring it up. But I know Steve didn't read it off either, so I figured it was something we probably shouldn't touch on.
Oh, I think I saw it, and then we were talking about other things, and I was going to go back to it, and we just got off track. And
right, yeah, I just don't really want to bring down the mood twice. I brought up his poor friend that passed away. I'm like, do I really want to talk about that? It's like,
it was a nice.
I don't want to talk about that anyway.
It was a nice little tribute, though, and it mentioned the documentary.
Yes, it was.
So,
yes, it was a very nice tribute.
So yeah, definitely. If you haven't seen the documentary, it's on Tubi also. So I guess, is it on Amazon Prime?
I know it was on Tubi. That's where I watched it.
Yeah, I watched it on Tubi. Is where I watched it. So
I didn't check to see if it was on anywhere else.
But yeah, I typed in Monster Squad on Tubi, and then Wolfman has Nards, or Wolfman Scott Nards popped up, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll watch that one then.
Yeah, I own the Monster Squad. I only have the digital copy, but I own that, so I just watched that, and then I watched that earlier this week. But last night I watched The Knight Rider, and then Wolfman's Got Nards after Joe Bob was over. So I was up late watching stuff and trying to find this damn shirt. I was looking everywhere for it.
I need my shirt.
I couldn't find it, and it was not where I thought it was. I have too many clothes. So I have some like upstairs. Well, we have, since my leg's been messed up, we have kind of a area down here I stay with. So I got clothes on this level, and then I got some in the basement. And Mr. Bones learned real good. Yeah, you go and learn real good, you hear?
Yeah, it was a great interview. Thank you.
Yes.
It's let's see, I've been reviewing Christmas horror films. Oh yeah, people have been doing the 12 Days of Christmas. I got to watch those, but I know
12
a bunch
Days
of
Xmas. I didn't know anything about it, but yeah. But I have reviewed horror movies. I got a playlist of, I think it's called Holiday. I don't know. There's a playlist somewhere on my channel. It's either labeled Christmas or holiday movies where I've reviewed previous.
That's right. I'm sorry to interrupt. Mr. Bones just said Hanukkah has Sid Haig in it. Yeah, it does. Or Sid Haig. Yeah. Sid Haig. Haig. I don't know why I say Sid Haig. I'm thinking German from Monster Squad, I guess. I don't know. If that's even a word, I don't know. Just making shit up as we go. But yeah. But yeah, Hanukkah does have him in that. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I don't know why I said Bill Moseley. I was thinking Devil's Rejects actors, so I was close. Somewhat.
Yeah, I seen it on a horror site a while back. Boom, I hated reading it. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just didn't feel like it would be something he'd want to talk about, especially after just bringing up his poor friend, though, because he kind of looked a little teary-eyed when he was talking about that a little bit. Yeah. So I felt bad. I didn't mean it to go that way, but I was just kind of going off a instinct not to bring it down even more because we were having fun.
But yeah, he is doing good, and I read something else too after that he's been doing much better after that little scare. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah, he seemed to have a lot of fun. That was great.
Yeah, it stayed on longer than I thought.
Yeah, almost 2.5 hours. I think that's probably. Oh, besides, I think Steve.
Yeah, besides Steve.
I think that's only other person that stayed on about that long.
So, hey, it's all good though. It's fun.
Oh yeah, much appreciated.
That sausage pizza real good.
What are you eating my sausage for?
Only eating one, you got a whole pizza. I'll eat some of my Alfredo.
Yeah, it's Garrett not coming down.
He's still asleep. I can't get him up.
Uh.
I tried twice.
I made frozen pizzas while we're cooking talking.
We're a cooking show now.
Apparently, I did have a brief. Well, I wouldn't really call it a cooking show, but I had like this little skit per se. But I ended up deleting that video because it was just so bad. It was just some like tortellini or something like that boiling, and then it's like the way the bubbles formed. It was funny, so I made some sort of joke out of it, and I was like, "Oh, this is stupid. I'm deleting this."
So
Yeah.
so I think what is it? I think the Christmas show is going to be the last one of the year, I believe. I don't think it'll be the New Year after our Christmas, because that'll be the 25th, and then of course Saturday after that will be in the New Year.
Yeah, it would be the first.
So yeah, nothing. I do have the first guest announcement. I can talk. Announcement. So far on the 22nd of January, got Fedor Steer coming on from Haunting at Hill House, Dr. Sleep. That, of course, is announced on the Facebook group page, the House of Horrors podcast. Of course, as it gets closer to, I'll have up reminders and video.
Yeah, and I'll get around to making a thumbnail eventually.
So yeah, so we got time for that, and just confirming some dates with some other people in talks with. So hopefully very soon we'll have some stuff updated. So and
that'd be really cool. Because a couple days before my birthday, we get somebody from Dr. Sleep and what was it, House on Haunted Hill?
No, A Haunting at Hill House, the Netflix.
Haunting at Hill House. I had it all goofed up.
He was actually in an episode of Burn Notice also. Yeah. So.
Friend is and Horace, yes. There was something, according to the documentary, he had pneumonia and something happened at the hospital and he had a reaction and
they basically fucked up and he died because of their mistake.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what the documentary. If you watch the documentary, they have some of his close friends talk about it, but they have a really good thing about it. But yeah, definitely check out Wolfman Got Nards, the documentary. It'll give you probably a little bit more information on what we did, but it's definitely very good. Excuse me.
Well,
I was trying to keep muting so I wouldn't like talk or cough while he was talking. But I was like, every time I felt a cough, I try to hurry up and mute. I think there was a couple times I missed, but for the most part, I got it.
You were muted. You were good, so it wasn't too bad. I think I'm going to go get something to eat, so I think that wraps it up for tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody, and for watching the replay, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, I got to go get some of my pizza before it gets too cold.
Yeah, cold pizza, not good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end it. Good night.
All right, see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.